Chapter 426. Hey, fifth page truth, you wrap yourself in a layer of rotten meat all day long. Can you still smell the stench? Why don't you let me make this rotten meat into a small black house that will lock you up forever? As she spoke, the short-haired woman's face became ferocious, making her delicate facial features become terrifying. At that moment, a light cough made third page eternal sin and fifth page truth immediately turn serious. A girl wearing thick glasses and looking like a girl next door stood up and said as if she was singing. In the Radiance Federation, the life parasitized by my gardener konjac seeds can cooperate with seventh page war's operation. Seventh page war's voice was mixed with pity and mockery, tinged with a hint of disgust. Second page revival, I don't need you to cooperate with me. The girl next door girl looked at seventh page war with some grievance, and the tone of her chant suddenly changed to become like a mournful song. I'm also afraid that seventh page war's war knell and radiance chariot will be cracked again by the Moon Empress. At that point, the girl next door girl seemed to have a sudden realization. Oh, I forgot. Seventh page war's sacred source lifeforms, war knell and radiance chariot, have evolved. Then seventh page war will take back the Radiance Federation's sacred source lifeform alone. After saying that, second page revival changed the topic. He looked at the cold man sitting next to third page eternal sin, who was twisting like a snake. The laws in the 300 wax figures in the sky garden have been washed clean by the baptism spring. The materials for a new batch of wax figures have also been prepared. Eighth page death, make a new batch of wax figures as soon as possible. The cold man, who was twisting like a snake, shrugged and revealed a neurotic smile on his face. However, he did not laugh. His mouth was wide open, and he silently said, "Okay." Lin Yuan was sitting on the water rhinoceros leather sofa in the hall, flipping through his phone. He was going to enter Star Web to check his gains from the blind trade later, as well as the 30-flower brocade pearls auction in the group welfare. Lin Yuan opened the offline forum on his phone, which he had not been on for a long time. The idiotic netizen who found that he had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider sent him a message again. A person like you will definitely fail the Fey observation and spiritual ingredient analysis exams. Lin Yuan curled his lips when he saw this message. What exactly did I send last time? How could he encounter such a vicious curse? Lin Yuan tried to recall and realized that he could not remember at all. However, Lin Yuan wasn't convinced when it came to cheating. When Lin Yuan had taken the Creation Master exam, he had scored 100 points in the Fey observation and spiritual ingredient analysis exams. Although he had relied on Genius back then, he now often wore Genius Tool Transformation Mask and shared the knowledge that Genius had learned. He had already faintly integrated that knowledge. Therefore, it was impossible for him to fail the spiritual ingredient analysis and Fey observation exams. During this period, he was also frantically learning some knowledge that high-class creation masters needed to master. Lin Yuan had deliberately cultivated his learning habit. No matter how busy he was, he had to learn something new every day. This was because the knowledge that he had learned would become knowledge after being stored in his mind for a long time. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and replied to the idiotic netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. Even if I don't know anything about spiritual ingredient analysis and Fey observation, I can still pass. In just a moment, the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider replied, "How is that possible? You're just guessing." When Lin Yuan saw the message, he replied, "In any case, be it spiritual ingredient analysis or Fey observation, the multiple choice questions are 60 points. My ears are good, and I can hear other people's multiple choice answers. Then how did you hear the answer to the multiple choice question? How do I choose ABCD? Lin Yuan didn't even think about it before replying. A is 3 strokes, C is 1 stroke, B and D are both 2 strokes, but D will be faster than B. After Lin Yuan sent the message, he noticed that the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider had sent 6 points and replied, "I'll try it during the next exam." After saying that, he no longer paid any attention to her. Lin Yuan was a little dumbfounded that someone actually believed such words. If you can hear the sound of one person writing among so many others in the examination room, You will be able to hear the sound of one person writing. Then you'd be an immortal. Moreover, even if you could hear it clearly, what if your brother in front of you got all the multiple choice questions wrong? That would really be a tragedy. He could imagine that the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider would scold him in the future. Therefore, he decided to blacklist the netizen who had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. Lin Yuan felt that he was simply too smart. He had taken precautions. At this time, in a big house, a short-haired girl was holding a pen and writing in a small notebook. A is 3 strokes, C is 1 stroke, B and D are both 2 strokes, D is faster than B. After she finished writing, the short-haired girl felt that the spiritual material analysis and spiritual material observation courses, which she had been seriously reviewing, were a bit of an eyesore. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. The short-haired girl was about to open the door when she saw a head poking in. The short-haired girl said angrily, "Dad, why are you monitoring my studies again?" The middle-aged man was holding a few pieces of clothes in his hand and said with some grievance, "Baby, your mom asked me to take you out for dinner. How could I possibly monitor your studies? Monitoring your studies is your mom's job. I'm only responsible for earning money to support the family." The short-haired girl couldn't help but roll her eyes. "I get scolded by my mom 800 times a year, and at least 750 of those times are because you snitched on me." The middle-aged man quickly said righteously, "Don't talk nonsense. Out of the 800 times you get scolded this year, 60 of those times are because you didn't wear a headgear in front of your mom. I'm not snitching on you." When the short-haired girl saw the bumblebee headgear in the middle-aged man's hand, she immediately pointed at her short hair in exasperation. "Dad, the ghost shadow-bristled spider's venom has long been detoxified, and my hair has grown out. I'm not bald, so don't give me a headgear." At this point, the short-haired girl suddenly said in a mysterious tone, "Dad, I remember that you need Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, right? I can get them, but you have to promise me that you won't snitch on me to my mom again." When the middle-aged man heard that, he couldn't help but say with a smile, "Baby is the best. Baby is the best. Daddy is happy that baby has this kind of heart." The short-haired girl felt very helpless. "Dad, I'm already 16 years old. I'm no longer a child." The middle-aged man said lovingly as he tidied up the books on the table. "Baby, you've grown up. You know how to make Dad happy." At this moment, the short-haired girl only felt that it would have been better if she had been bitten to death by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. She wouldn't have had to suffer this anger. First chapter Happy first day end of this chapter. Chapter 427. Lin Yuan logged onto Star Web and checked the gains from the blind trade of the 10-flower brocade pearls. Even though Lin Yuan had already expected it, he was still taken aback at first glance. The number of mid-grade strange flames obtained from the blind trade of the 10-flower brocade pearls had reached 440. Previously, Lin Yuan had used 10-flower brocade pearls to exchange for 100 mid-grade strange flames, which was higher than the market price. But now, the price of the flower brocade pearls was more than 4 times higher than the original market price. This made Lin Yuan feel like he had harvested ginseng from the leeks. In his Star Web store, Lin Yuan deliberately spread the news that the next fan group welfare was 10 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. At that time, the blind trade had just begun. It was unknown how many of the 440 mid-grade strange flames had been attracted by the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. After the blind trade ended, another 10 bigwigs entered Lin Yuan's fan group. The addition of the new members made the purchase with no loss fan group even livelier. The 30-flower brocade pearls in the group welfare had also allowed Lin Yuan to harvest a lot of precious resources. The resources that Lin Yuan needed to build his faction's Sky City could not be so simple. The resources that Lin Yuan had obtained through the group welfare auction allowed him to have an abundance of precious resources in his hands. Every time the bigwigs increased the price, it was equivalent to a screening. After several rounds of price increases, they could ensure that the resources in Lin Yuan's hands were absolutely high quality. Lin Yuan planned to store these resources in the Platinum Fey storage box. They would wait until the floating island whale hatched in June of this year in preparation for building a Sky City on its back. Lin Yuan quietly displayed the 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish in his fan group. He planned to choose a time to auction these 10 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls as group welfare. It was also considered fulfilling his promise. Then, Lin Yuan logged out of Star Web. After logging out of Star Web, Lin Yuan wore the glasses that Genius Tool Transformation had transformed into as usual. He started to read books about creation masters. Wearing Genius Tool Transformation glasses to read, Lin Yuan could clearly imprint the knowledge in his mind. Even if Lin Yuan wore Genius Tool Transformation glasses, he still could not reach the level of Genius photographic memory. However, Lin Yuan only needed to read it 3 times and could generally remember it. As he read, Lin Yuan seemed to have an epiphany in his mind that became clearer and clearer. It seemed that all the knowledge in this epiphany was closely related. However, just as this comprehension became clearer and clearer, Lin Yuan found that there was a faint membrane on this layer of comprehension. No matter what he did, he could not break it. Lin Yuan did not feel sad because he could not break through the outer membrane of this comprehension. Lin Yuan was very happy. According to the increasingly clear comprehension in his heart, if this comprehension condensed into a willpower rune, it should be related to knowledge. For several days, Lin Yuan had locked himself in his room to read. For the next few days, Lin Yuan locked himself in his room and flipped through books. However, the comprehension in his mind was still stagnant. This also made him give up the intention to continue burying his head in the book in the house. Lin had God Soul Lin Yuan, dragon, and had mountain pearls. You had star had hearing dragon. The dragon had pearls had star had jade. The listening hearing dragon chamber of commerce had become an empty shelf. Listen was still not in a hurry to make any big moves. Instead, he was going to accumulate some items made of completely jade-textured powder and directly reshape the listening hearing dragon chamber of commerce's business direction. At the same time, Listen was also using Fei Qianqiong as a spy. He planned to devour the online and offline resources that the Iron Arm Chamber of Commerce had given up bit by bit. If a Chamber of Commerce wanted to develop to the extreme, the best way was to set foot in every field. It had intertwined in various fields and formed a huge business empire. Zhu Luo had also come to the royal capital in the past few days. He had sworn a willpower rune to Lin Yuan, issued an allegiance oath, and become Lin Yuan's servant. At the same time, after Lin Yuan poured 5 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls into it, the iron bone iguana's second head finally grew out. The iron bone iguana's new head was fire type. The new head directly activated the fire type energy in the iron bone iguana's body, which was originally earth type. The fire type and earth type energy fused and turned into scorching lava. The iron bone iguana also mutated into a lava iguana under such elemental fusion. Lin Yuan also contracted the bronze epic lizard species Fei, the dark snake dragon lizard, that had awakened the dragon species bloodline, for Zhu Luo. There were only a few days left before the active phase of the dimensional rift. Therefore, Lin Yuan felt that it was time to go to Indigo Azure City to see what tricks the Zheng family had in the offshore coastal resources that they wanted to seize from the listening hearing chamber of commerce. Lin Yuan did not intend to let Endless Summer follow him to Indigo Azure City this time. He only intended to bring Liu Jie, the mother of Bloodbath, and the recruited Zhu Luo, as well as Listen, to investigate. However, when Lin Yuan found out that Endless Summer had killed a pinnacle king-class expert while protecting Listen, Lin Yuan decided that it would be safer to bring Endless Summer on this trip to Indigo Azure City in addition to his path protector, the mother of Bloodbath. After all, Indigo Azure City was the Zheng family's base camp. Early the next morning, Lin Yuan ordered a platinum flying fei, the long-backed swan. Lin Yuan originally wanted to order a divine travel black swallow. Although it was very uncomfortable to fly on the divine travel black swallow, it was much faster than the long-backed swan. However, the divine travel black swallow was a petite flying fei that could only carry 2 people at most. This time, Lin Yuan's group of 6 needed a larger flying fei. Therefore, Lin Yuan chose the long-backed swan that balanced speed and comfort. On the back of the long-backed swan, Lin Yuan, Liu Jie, the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Listen sat cross-legged. Zhu Luo stood respectfully at the side, guarding the 5 people who were sitting cross-legged like a guard. Listen told Lin Yuan about the recent news he had obtained about Indigo Azure City. I recently found someone to check the shallow nearshore sea in Indigo Azure City that I had never paid attention to before. As a result, I lost contact with the 2 experts I sent. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan frowned slightly and asked, "What's the strength of the 2 experts you sent?" "What are the strength of the 2 experts you sent?" Listen said with a bitter smile. "Currently, the strongest combat power in the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce is Fei Chenqiong, but I don't want to use him as a spy. Therefore, I sent 2 listening Heron Chamber of Commerce experts with platinum phase. After sending them out, they only reported to me once, and there was no more news. I'm guessing they're already dead." Lin Yuan knew that the shallow sea controlled by the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce in Indigo Azure City was not safe. If he did not use his trump cards, his strength should actually be similar to the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out. 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase went to the shallow sea to scout for information without going deep into the sea. It was impossible for him to have been attacked by a marine fae. Therefore, most of the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase had died at the hands of other spirit chi professionals. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Listen speak again. "Young master, the first message they sent me said that there are broken corpses of gold water world dimensional creatures on the coast. I think there should be a water world dimensional rift near this coastal sea." Lin Yuan had always needed the flesh of gold water world dimensional life forms. However, after hearing Listen's news, Lin Yuan was not happy at all. Instead, his brows furrowed even more. Lin Yuan said in a deep voice, "It doesn't matter if this shallow nearshore sea is a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, or if someone is coveting it. I want to see what's hidden in it." Second update Happy first day Hey. On the 26th, I'll record the top 30 fans. Add the top 30 fans to the book group. In order to thank everyone for their support, there will be small gifts. Hee. End of this chapter. Chapter 428. Lin Yuan was very puzzled at that moment. How could the broken corpses of gold water world dimensional life forms appear on the shore? After the water world dimensional creatures died, their flesh would quickly rot and sink to the bottom of the sea. The marine phase in the sea didn't only consist of animal-type marine phase, but there were also plant-type and insect-type marine phase. After the flesh and blood of the water world dimensional creatures rotted, it was extremely stinky and poisonous. Most of the marine phase did not like to eat animal phase. However, the flesh of these dead and decayed water world dimensional life forms was a gluttonous feast for the plant species and insect species phase among the marine phase. Therefore, it was very unusual for the flesh of these gold water world dimensional creatures to be discovered on the shore. The only possibility that Lin Yuan could think of was that the gold water world dimensional life form had been killed very close to the shore. The sudden bombardment left the flesh and blood of the gold water world dimensional creature's body with extremely strong cell activity. The flesh of the gold water world dimensional life forms with extremely strong cellular activity was washed to the shore by the waves. It was also coincidentally discovered by the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out. At the time of discovery, the cell activity in the flesh and blood of these gold water world dimensional creatures had completely disappeared. Corruption had begun, but it was not yet complete. He had personally witnessed the decaying speed of the water world dimensional life form's flesh. When the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out saw the gold water world dimensional life form's flesh on the shore, they felt a chill down their spines. This gold water world dimensional creature should have just died. The marine phase in the coastal waters were weaker, and it was very difficult to completely block the water world dimensional rift. Therefore, the water world dimensional creatures would attack the cities on the shore. This required the spirit chi professionals living near the coastal sea to take action against the water world dimensional life forms that were wreaking havoc on the shore. However, what puzzled Lin Yuan the most was that the people in Indigo Azure City did not notice the water world dimensional rift at all. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and asked Listen, Are there many fays that can effectively resist the water world dimensional rift in this coastal sea controlled by the listening heron chamber of commerce? Did any water world dimensional creatures attack the shore previously? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen immediately answered. Back then, my grandfather and father chose to use all of the listening heron chamber of commerce's resources to control this shallow nearshore sea because there are many shellfish fays in this shallow nearshore sea. The shells, flesh, and pearls contained in shellfish fays are all excellent resources. Shellfish fays don't have strong offensive abilities. Due to the large number of shellfish fays, the plankton in the water are all plundered by them. Therefore, most of the marine fays in this sea region rely on shellfish fays to survive. Among them, the beaked spiny skin fish and the shell-eating armored turtles are the most numerous. However, the beak-billed spiny skin fish and the shell-eating armored turtles are only ferocious to the shell fays. They can only be hunted by the water world dimensional creatures. However, due to the large number of beaked spiny fish, there is also a large school of tail-cutting shadow sharks that feed on the beaked spiny fish. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan knew that this coastal sea could be said to be very dangerous. However, this coastal sea was destined to be unable to effectively resist the emergence of the fays in the water world dimensional rift. The tail-cutting shadow sharks were a very special group of ferocious fays in the sea. The existence of the tail-cutting shadow sharks meant that there would be no large predators in this sea region. This was because the tail-cutting shadow sharks would take the lead in eliminating all life that could pose a threat to them in their territory. If there were tail-cutting shadow sharks in this sea region, there would still be large predators. That meant that this group of tail-cutting shadow sharks had been killed by the large predators. There was only one school of tail-cutting shadow sharks in the sea, even if they were individually strong. Even if the tail-cutting shadow sharks were extremely strong, due to their limited numbers, the suppression on a large number of water world dimensional creatures was too small. Even if these tail-cutting shadow sharks went crazy, they would not be able to eliminate less than half of the water world dimensional creatures. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Listen continue to speak. In the early years, water world dimensional creatures would invade this coastal sea once or twice a month, Lin Yuan said with a smile. As long as the water world dimensional rift opens, this coastal sea is destined to not be peaceful. At this point, Listen's tone became extremely solemn. However, 3 years ago, there have been no water world dimensional creatures invading this coastal sea. After listening to Listen's words, Lin Yuan felt that everything had become even stranger. Lin Yuan thought for a long time but could not figure it out. It seemed that he had to go to the coastal sea controlled by the listening heron chamber of commerce to have a good exploration. Only then would he know what secrets were hidden in this coastal sea. Lin Yuan looked at the mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer. Endless Summer, mother of Bloodbath, the two of you will hide in the dark when we arrive at Indigo Azure City. If no one is in danger, you don't have to make a move. Lin Yuan knew that the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase that Listen had sent out had died. He felt that the Zheng family was not the only one eyeing the listening heron chamber of commerce's shallow coastal sea. The Zheng family had already sent people to the royal capital to attack the listening heron chamber of commerce and had even sent pinnacle king-class experts to kill Listen. This showed that the Zheng family was determined to obtain the listening heron chamber of commerce's shallow coastal sea. There was no need for the Zheng family to kill these 2 spirit chi professionals who had been investigating the listening heron chamber of commerce's shallow coastal sea. These 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase had most likely investigated a secret that absolutely could not be known by others. They wanted to kill the 2 spirit chi professionals with platinum phase and not let them have a chance to convey the news to Listen. This was at least at Fei Qianqiong's level. The Zheng family was in the light, while Lin Yuan was in the dark. The Zheng family might be strong in the light. However, the Zheng family was Lin Yuan's visible enemy. Often, the enemy in the dark was the most terrifying. Just like young Master Zheng in the royal capital, who had lost news of a pinnacle king-class expert. He would probably not be able to sleep well during this period. What made Lin Yuan feel a little troublesome now was that besides the Zheng family, there was really someone watching the listening heron chamber of commerce's shallow coastal sea in the dark. In that case, The enemy in the dark was an unknown hidden danger. After the Zheng family had attacked the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, this hidden force still had designs on this shallow coastal sea. This meant that this hidden force definitely had the confidence to contend with the Zheng family. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's shallow coastal sea did not have legs and could not run. Without the support of absolute strength, it was simply impossible to snatch food from the Zheng family's mouth. First more, end of this chapter. Chapter 429. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the mother of Bloodbath replied, "If we encounter an Emperor-class expert sneak attack, it will be very difficult to stop them immediately while hiding in the dark. Big Sister Summer is not good at concealment, so let Big Sister Summer hide in the dark. Although the law I control is blood, my race and exclusive skill are extremely good at concealment. Even if I am beside you, Emperor-class experts will not discover me." After hearing the mother of Bloodbath's words, Endless Summer fiddled with the bell hidden in the pink and purple hydrangea on the bracelet and said, "Little Sister Blood and I will stay close and far away. Little Sister Schwer and I will stay close and one from afar. Little Sister Schwer will protect your safety. While I am watching you from a distance, I will also see how many eyes are watching you in the dark." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. When the mother of Bloodbath saw Lin Yuan nod, the corners of its originally expressionless mouth hooked into a happy arc. Relying on the Path Protector contract between it and Lin Yuan, it spoke in Lin Yuan's mind in a voice that only he could hear. "I am your Path Protector. Your safety is the top priority." Lin Yuan's heart warmed when he heard the mother of Bloodbath's words. In fact, during this period of time, Lin Yuan had almost forgotten that the mother of Bloodbath was his Path Protector. However, the mother of Bloodbath had been silently fulfilling its duty as a Path Protector. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath on the long-backed swan's back flashed with a scarlet luster. Looking at this scarlet luster, it only felt as though they were looking at a sticky pool of blood. Everyone could clearly feel the long-backed swan trembling faintly, obviously terrified to the extreme. If Endless Summer had not used its aura to control the long-backed swan when the mother of Bloodbath had transformed, the long-backed swan would probably have fallen to the ground in fear from the mother of Bloodbath's aura. The mother of Bloodbath was a type of tarantula that could suppress the long-backed swan in terms of rank. Apart from rank suppression, it also had a kind of racial deterrence. The mother of Bloodbath shrank to the size of 1 centimeter, just like when it had first become Lin Yuan's Path Protector. However, the mother of Bloodbath did not land on the leaf-shaped diamond Fey storage box hanging on Lin Yuan's chest. Instead, it landed in Lin Yuan's hair and hid there. Lin Yuan, Liu Jie, Endless Summer, and Listen already knew that the mother of Bloodbath was a suzerain myth-breed Fey. Only Zhu Luo, who was on the long-backed swan's back, did not know the mother of Bloodbath's identity. Now, Zhu Luo saw the mother of Bloodbath turn from human form into a scarlet spider and hide in Lin Yuan's hair. His eyes immediately widened and he gulped down a mouthful of saliva as he sighed inwardly. How many sacrifices did he have to make to have the opportunity to join such a strong force? This was at least a legendary suzerain myth 2 Fey, and it was actually right beside him. Moreover, according to the conversation between the spider-like woman and the abnormally gentle woman, Lin Fan had a strange feeling. Zhu Luo wasn't sure if the other woman was a spirit creature, but she was definitely an emperor-grade spirit creature. While Zhu Luo was still in shock, he hadn't expected to be called out by Lin Yuan. "Zhu Luo, you don't have to move with us after we reach Indigo Azure City." When Zhu Luo heard Lin Yuan's words, he immediately put away his shock and prepared to listen to Lin Yuan's instructions. At the same time, Zhu Luo was ready to face danger. When he issued the loyalty oath and made the servant oath, Zhu Luo knew that his life no longer belonged to him when he obtained resources. But immediately afterward, Lin Yuan's words gave Zhu Luo an indescribable feeling. After your iron bone iguana used 5 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish, it grew a second head and mutated into a lava iguana. When it mutated into a lava iguana, its grade also increased from Platinum 9 to Platinum X. I think the lava iguana's dragon species bloodline is only one flawless dragon's mouth orchid flower away from being stimulated. I happen to have one here. Take it and let the lava iguana stimulate the dragon species bloodline in its body. Lin Yuan had used the 30-flower brocade pearls to exchange for 2 Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid flowers in the purchase with No Lost Stores fan club. Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid flowers were not considered very rare on the market. They could be auctioned off in the Star Web Rare Lifeform Pavilion for nearly $1 million radiance. After giving Zhu Luo the Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid flowers, the lava iguana had a high chance of breaking through its grade limit when it stimulated the dragon species bloodline in its body. It would increase its grade from Platinum X to Diamond I. This increase in grade would allow the lava iguana to become a Diamond Fantasy breed Fae. It was tantamount to letting Zhu Luo step from the level of a low-level king-class expert to the level of a middle-level king-class expert. This way, Zhu Luo would be able to complete the mission better. But to be honest, if Lin Yuan only had that epic dragon's mouth orchid flower, he wouldn't have been able to kill it. Lin Yuan really would not let Zhu Luo use this epic dragon's mouth orchid flower. The epic dragon's mouth orchid flower was already the top dragon's mouth orchid flower that had appeared on the market. This kind of thing could not be bought with radiance dollars. Lin Yuan was more inclined to let the white-clothed servants obtain resources on their own when nurturing them. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would throw all the resources at these white-clothed servants to improve their strength. It was not that Lin Yuan could not afford it. In that case, Lin Yuan might as well change his name from Lin Yuan to Big Head Lin. Lin Yuan would not do something that was completely disproportionate between the effort and the reward. However, resources like the Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid were harmless to him. Although the Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid was harmless to Lin Yuan, it made Zhu Luo feel moved like a raging wave in his heart. Previously, Lin Yuan had invested the bronze epic dark snake dragon lizard and 5 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Although Zhu Luo was grateful, he was not moved. This was because Zhu Luo had exchanged such resources with a servant oath. However, the Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid was not. In the past, Zhu Luo would need to accumulate 2 years to accumulate this Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid. Now that the Iron Bone Iguana had mutated into a Lava Iguana, Zhu Luo's strength had improved. In Zhu Luo's opinion, he would need at least 8 months to earn the money for the Flawless Dragon's Mouth Orchid. But now, the organization that he had devoted all of his loyalty to had given him such a gift before he had even contributed to his first mission. This made Zhu Luo feel even more grateful. Lin Yuan said as he looked at Listen. Listen, how do you think the Zheng family's young master Zheng will feel if he finds out that you suddenly returned to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion in Indigo Azure City? The second chapter. Everyone, please wear a mask and take care of your body. End of chapter. Chapter 430. When Listen heard Lin Yuan's words, he frowned slightly and pondered. After thinking for a while, Listen suddenly laughed and said, "The Zheng family is a veteran faction. As one of the 3 major factions in Indigo Azure City, it can be said that they can cover the sky with one hand. If I'm the Zheng family's young master Zheng, then I suddenly find that the target I want to kill has returned to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital alive. Even if the Zheng family can confirm that the Pinnacle King-class expert they sent is dead, they will at most suspect that this Pinnacle King-class expert's death is related to me and cannot be sure. The Zheng family is determined to get the resources of the shallow coastal sea, so they should send another expert to kill me." Lin Yuan heard Listen's words and asked, "Then what kind of expert do you think the Zheng family will send to make a move on you?" In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Zheng family would definitely send an expert to make a move on Listen. However, the main purpose was not to kill Listen immediately. Instead, it was to prove whether the death of the Pinnacle King-class expert they had sent was related to Listen. To put it bluntly, this was a kind of test. To be able to silently kill a Pinnacle King-class expert with a Diamond X Fantasy 4 Fae, this person had at least the combat power of an Emperor-class expert. Among the veteran factions, no veteran faction would casually send out an Emperor-class expert. Before the Zheng family could determine the strength of the Emperor-class expert who had killed the Pinnacle King-class expert, the Zheng family would definitely not let their Emperor-class expert easily take risks. The loss of a Pinnacle King-class expert must have been very painful for the Zheng family. Therefore, in Lin Yuan's opinion, the strength of the King-class expert sent by the Zheng family should not be too strong. At most, It would be at Fei Qianqiong's level. In this test, the Zheng family must have been prepared to lose a king-class expert. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Listen answered. It should be either a king-class or an emperor-class expert. The possibility of a king-class expert is higher. After saying that, Listen paused for a moment before continuing. But I know that young master won't let the Zheng family kill me anyway. Lin Yuan raised his brows and said, That's natural. Of course. Not to mention how much resources Lin Yuan had invested in Listen. If Listen was killed by the Zheng family, then Lin Yuan's previous efforts would be in vain. Moreover, Listen had issued an allegiance oath to Lin Yuan, so he was a part of Lin Yuan's faction. Lin Yuan would not allow the Zheng family to lay their hands on the members of his faction. Listen, since you've returned to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital, you naturally have to return to the old mansion. After speaking to Listen, he turned to Endless Summer, who was sitting cross-legged beside him. Endless Summer, when Listen returns to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion, just like when you were in the royal capital, protect him in secret. Endless Summer nodded in response. Endless Summer raised her fair hand and shook the diamond Fey storage box hanging on her wrist as she said, All right, let's go. There are still 2 corpses of high-grade dark-type Feys here. I'll let little sister Blood do the work and split up the spiritual ingredients. Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan recalled how the mother of Bloodbath had split the pinnacle suzerain Myth 2 Crow's corpse. Not a single bit of it was wasted. The mother of Bloodbath pondered for a moment and said, Since they are 2 high-grade dark-type fantasy breed Feys, their willpower should be stronger. When I return to the Imperial City, I'll carefully divide it again and see if I can use the blood rules to control the blood. Stimulate the cell activity of these 2 high-grade dark-type fantasy breed Feys and preserve the willpower in their minds as much as possible. Riding the wind, he got closer and closer to Indigo Azure City. Slowly, Lin Yuan felt that the surrounding temperature was much higher than when he was in the royal capital. The air on the sea also carried a faint saltiness of the sea breeze. On the back of the platinum long-backed swan, Lin Yuan could already faintly see the outline of Indigo Azure City. Indigo Azure City was a huge coastal city. Even though Lin Yuan was high in the sky, he could only see 1/10 or 2/10 of this huge city. Lin Yuan flipped his hand, and a palm-sized light blue dragon tongue-shaped flower appeared. Lin Yuan said as he handed the flawless dragon's mouth orchid to Zhu Luo. Let your lava iguana complete its evolution first, then wait for me to contact you. After saying that, he pondered for a while and took out a tube of dark gold blood. Take this tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood too. If the flawless dragon's mouth orchid can't stimulate the lava iguana's dragon species bloodline, this tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood should have a supportive effect. The activation of the dragon species bloodline by a Fey would occasionally be accompanied by some unknown changes. Lin Yuan gave Zhu Luo an extra tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood, which could be considered a precaution. Zhu Luo said as he accepted Lin Yuan's gift. Young master, 1 day is enough for the lava iguana to awaken its dragon-type bloodline and advance. If you don't contact me after that, I'll go to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's coastal sea to inquire about the news. Lin Yuan suddenly realized that Zhu Luo's eyes actually had a resolute emotion in this short period of time. Moreover, now that Zhu Luo knew the purpose of his trip, he took the initiative to undertake the mission. This situation showed that Zhu Luo was no longer just devoted and loyal to Lin Yuan. Alright, but since there are people secretly watching that shallow coastal sea, don't go there to ask for information and put yourself in danger. There's a guild alliance branch near that coastal sea. Go there and investigate. You should be able to gain something. In this world, apart from the true top factions that had their own information network, the guild alliance's information was undoubtedly the most comprehensive. After all, there were spirit chi professionals everywhere in the guild alliance, and many of them were local spirit chi professionals in Indigo Azure City. These local spirit chi professionals lived in Indigo Azure City all year round. Perhaps someone would know some information that was useful to him. At that moment, Listen suddenly thought of something. Young master, every 10 years before the rioting period of the dimensional rift, there will be a grand Indigo Azure Sea Market in Indigo Azure City. Almost all the local factions and individuals in Indigo Azure City will sell the spiritual ingredients and fays they have collected in the ocean over the past 10 years at this sea market. There are many rare and strange things in the Indigo Azure Sea Market. There will always be people who go to pick up the leftovers, but even Class 4 creation masters will make a mistake. The first time, end of this chapter. Chapter 431. Listen paused for a moment. I believe we should be able to find the high-level marine dimensional creature flesh that young master wanted in this sea market. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. He took out a mask engraved with the majestic Sky City pattern from the diamond Fey storage box and wore it. The Zheng family will probably make a move on you on the night you return. Big brother Liu and I will openly visit you at the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion the next morning. Then, you'll take us to the Indigo Azure Sea Market. As soon as he said that, the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Liu Jie put on a strange mask with clouds carved on their faces. At that moment, Lin Yuan's eyes behind the mask revealed a sharpness that had never been revealed before. It was time for Sky City, which had never shown its brilliance, to appear before the various major powers. In a study room filled with all sorts of platinum fays and plants, Lin Yun was standing at the center of the room. A middle-aged man with malicious eyes was standing in front of the table. Suddenly, the sinister-eyed middle-aged man fiercely kicked the kneeling young man with the same sinister-eyed expression and shouted angrily. "How did I, Zheng Jiangliu, give birth to such a stupid son?" The sinister-looking youth, who was kicked by the sinister-looking middle-aged man, lowered his head and did not dare to make a sound. At this moment, the old man standing beside the sinister-looking middle-aged man looked at the sinister-looking young man on the ground with a pained expression and said, "Master, Wenbo already knows his mistake. Moreover, an expert who can kill old cow without causing a commotion is at least an emperor-tier expert. It's useless for you to blame Wenbo." The old man's back was ramrod straight, and when he spoke, he seemed to have a cedar-like aura. Upon hearing the old man's words, the sinister-looking youth on the ground hurriedly replied, "Father, listen to Grandpa Jiao. What can I do if an Emperor Realm expert attacks Elder Nyo? Besides, I asked Elder Nyo to make a move against the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's listen because you said you had second young master's support. I wanted to quickly complete the task you gave me. That's good too. Our three lineages' efforts over the years can finally be repaid." Zheng Jiangliu, the middle-aged Zheng Jiangliu, wanted to kick his son again when he heard that his son was so eloquent and found so many excuses. But when he heard the last part, he forcibly stopped himself. Over the past few years, the Zheng family's third lineage had been collecting resources from the coastal area of Indigo Azure City. However, they had not dared to really develop the coastal resources that they had collected. As a result, the first, second, and fourth bloodlines of the Zheng family were gradually being suppressed by the first, second, and fourth bloodlines. His son had asked Elder Nyo to make a move against the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's listen so that the three lineages could fully grasp Indigo Azure City's coastal resources as soon as possible. If it were him, he would probably do the same. However, Elder Nyo's death caused the three lineages to lose a peak king stage powerhouse. Furthermore, Elder Nyo was a peak king stage powerhouse who was adept at scouting. This ability was extremely useful for a faction. This kind of loss made Zheng Jiangliu's heart ache more than just losing a peak king stage combatant. Zheng Jiangliu glanced at his son, whose head was drooping on the ground, and snorted. "Do you know the background of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce?" When Zheng Wenbo heard his father's question, he shook his head and said, "What background does the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce have? If it really had a background, would the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce have toyed with it? Online and offline resources were swallowed without any room to retaliate." Even though Zheng Wenbo had thought all the way back to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital, he did not think that Elder Nyo had died in the hands of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Zheng Wenbo vaguely remembered that the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce's Bai Chenghu and Bai Chengxiong had told him that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had spread the news that he had found a backer. However, Zheng Wenbo felt that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was bluffing. Otherwise, Bai Chenghu and Bai Chengxiong would have long suffered, and it would not have been Elder Nyo's turn. When Zheng Jiangliu heard his son's words, he knew that his son had really done nothing on this trip to the royal capital. The Peak King stage powerhouse accompanying him had died, but he did not even know who he had offended. This Elder Nyo had really died unjustly. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's Listen has returned to Indigo Azure City from the royal capital. He is now in the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion. The person I sent to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old mansion 3 hours ago has yet to return. Listen is still alive and well. Zheng Jiangliu's words made Zheng Wenbo's pupils constrict. In that case, Elder Nyo had really died in the hands of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. However, no matter how Zheng Wenbo thought about it, he couldn't understand why the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's Listen had to endure the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce's trampling everywhere. However, all these facts were there, and Zheng Wenbo had no choice but to believe it. The old man with his back ramrod straight suddenly said, "Master, why don't you let me test how deep the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce is?" As he spoke, the old man's cedar-like aura grew thicker. However, there was an indescribable sharpness hidden within this cedar-like aura. This sharpness was hidden in the cedar's aura, making it extremely difficult to distinguish. Zheng Jiangliu hurriedly said, "Uncle Jiao, there's no need to trouble you with this matter. Your main Fae, the cold snow pine, is about to break through to Myth 2 and take human form. Don't let these trifling matters affect your cold snow pine's upcoming world cleansing." As Zheng Jiangliu spoke, the malicious light in his eyes became even brighter. When the elder heard Zheng Jiangliu's words, he said, "Master, if we can't take down the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's coastal sea before the Dimensional Rift riot, I'm afraid we won't be able to explain to Second Young Master." When Zheng Jiangliu heard the 2 words Second Young Master, the malicious glint in his eyes revealed fear and calculation. Zheng Jiangliu said in a deep voice, "Since Second Young Master wants to take half of the profits from the Third Ridge Shallow Coastal Sea, I'm sure Second Young Master won't just stand by and watch when I'm in trouble." Lin Yuan was sitting side by side with Liu Jie in a unique guest house in Indigo Azure City. They ate the specialty seafood barbecue in Indigo Azure City's guest house. At that moment, a message notification came from his phone. Lin Yuan took a look at the phone and found that it was as he had expected. The Zheng family sent a king-class expert to assassinate Listen. There were less than 5 days before the Dimensional Rift riot period, and there wasn't much time left for Lin Yuan to explore the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's coastal sea. For Lin Yuan, the simplest way to explore the coastal sea controlled by the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was to let red thorns spread out the sea of flowers in this coastal sea. The sea of flowers that red thorns Ortet spread out underwater was equivalent to a part of red thorn's body. Lin Yuan could completely use red thorn's sea of flowers as his eyes to explore the coastal sea. Second, more recommendation votes and monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 432. However, if he wanted to explore the secrets of this shallow nearshore sea through the sea of flowers that Red Thorn had spread underwater, he would need to do so. Before that, Red Thorn would no doubt need to devour more gold water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh. The ability to let the water element breathe was inherited from Red Thorn's mother Ramets to the child Ramets. It all depended on whether he could buy the gold water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh at tomorrow's Indigo Azure Sea Market. Lin Yuan was still looking forward to tomorrow's Indigo Azure Sea Market. Before going to bed, Lin Yuan needed to gather the resources he needed to use at the Indigo Azure Sea Market. Every Indigo Azure Sea Market was the accumulation of Indigo Azure City, a giant city by the sea, for 10 years. Therefore, if there were any precious phase or rare spiritual ingredients that were useful to Lin Yuan in this Indigo Azure Sea Market, it would be awkward if he could not take out the bargaining chips. At that moment, Lin Yuan found that Liu Jie, who was eating the charcoal-grilled octopus balls, was frowning more and more. After chewing and swallowing the last octopus ball on the skewer, the corners of Liu Jie's mouth twitched without a trace, revealing a look of disgust. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan hurriedly asked, "Big brother Liu, is there a problem?" Liu Jie nodded at first and then shook his head. Then, Lin Yuan heard Liu Jie say, "The store added some kelp to these octopus balls. The shop added some kelp into the octopus balls. If the kelp is boiled in water and dipped in the sauce, it will be more delicious. However, in addition to the oil on the octopus balls, the store also added some lard, which adds some fishy smell to the freshness of the kelp. Moreover, the octopus tentacles in the octopus balls are cut into 2 small pieces, so they are not chewy at all. Also, in the honey sauce of the barbecue brush, the spotted bee's honey has obviously been added with water, resulting in the honey sauce's taste not mellow enough. Liu Jie said a bunch of things, and Lin Yuan listened in a daze. This specialty guesthouse was very famous in Indigo Azure City. The specialty seafood barbecue was the signature of this guesthouse. Lin Yuan ate the specialty barbecue in the guesthouse. Although it did not feel as delicious as the meat skewers in Liu Jie's mansion, it was still passable. Liu Jie was indeed a chef. He could find so many flaws in the octopus balls with just one taste. He really had a good tongue. At that moment, Lin Yuan noticed that the lady boss's hand, which was standing not far from his table and pouring the snow clam soup for the customers at another table, paused. Clearly, the lady boss had heard Liu Jie's words, and the warm smile on her face froze. Lin Yuan didn't think there was anything wrong with the taste of the octopus balls. However, after listening to Liu Jie's review, he carefully tasted the octopus balls. Instead, Lin Yuan tasted the lard in the octopus balls. Based on his experience of eating blackback mountain boars all year round, the lard in the octopus balls was obviously from the blackback mountain boar. Lin Yuan could not help but feel that the octopus balls tasted even more delicious. After eating the specialty barbecue in the guesthouse, the lady boss smiled with a hidden dagger in her smile. Lin Yuan and Liu Jie hurriedly soaked in the hostel's hot spring and hurriedly left the lady boss's sight. Inside the guesthouse, the lady boss squinted her eyes and smiled like a weasel. Lin Yuan could not help but think of a saying. Squinting eyes is either a big shot or a monster. Lin Yuan and Liu Jie returned to their respective rooms. After returning to his room, Lin Yuan entered his spirit lock spatial zone. As soon as he entered the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan felt that he was almost blinded by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's leaves. Nearly 600 leaves sealed with mid-grade strange flames glowed with resplendent flames. They illuminated the spirit lock spatial zone like an illusion that existed in the aurora. Chimey was sleeping on the bird's nest surrounded by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's leaves. The speed at which Chimey absorbed the energy in the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's nest was obviously much faster than before. The energy transmitted by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree dyed Chimus azure blue feathers with a beautiful layer of extreme skylight. Gray was also sleeping on the cinnabar sweet Osman thus like Chimey. Apart from eating, it had been sleeping for almost the entire day. At that moment, there was no longer a trace of gray feathers on Gray's body. White feathers were attached to its wings, and there was a touch of vermilion on its head. This touch of vermilion was even more gorgeous than the cinnabar sweet osmanthus's flowers. However, this touch of vermilion was still very light and obviously had not fully developed. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh in his heart. Gray's genetic model and second development were almost at the end. The current Gray Ash already had a kind of graceful and fairy-like appearance, with a graceful temperament. I wonder what Gray will look like after its genetic model is fully developed. After sorting out his spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan found that the precious resources he could take out were actually the completely jade-textured wood and the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. He did not intend to trade out the source-type items that he had previously traded with them. He had previously given the completely jade-textured wood to Hu Quan in the mansion. It would still take a few days for the new batch of completely jade-textured wood to mature. Therefore, what Lin Yuan could spend at will now were the 2 large brocade boxes of fire-type heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls that he had collected recently. Lin Yuan stored these 2 large brocade boxes of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls into his amber button-shaped diamond fey storage box. Then, he took out 5 fays with good aptitudes that he had previously harvested in the depths of the endless forest from the diamond fey storage box. In the Indigo Azure Sea market, most of the peddlers were spirit chi professionals living in Indigo Azure City. These spirit chi professionals lived with the sea, and flying fays and aquatic fays were the most precious to them. Lin Yuan had not harvested any aquatic fays in the endless forest, but he had harvested plenty of flying-type fays. The 5 flying fays that Lin Yuan took out happened to be 5 of the same species, the winged speech sparrows. Lin Yuan had saved these 5 winged speech sparrow chicks from the mouth of a giant tree-breath venomous bird. Of course, when Lin Yuan had saved these 5 winged speech sparrow chicks, he had also harvested the giant tree-breath venomous bird. When Lin Yuan rescued these 5 winged speech sparrow chicks, he found that they were obviously dying of hunger. This meant that the winged speech sparrow couple had not returned to the nest for at least 2 days. When the winged speech sparrows were nurturing their chicks, they would never leave the nest too far. This meant that the 2 adult winged speech sparrows had already become food for other predators while foraging for food. When these 5 winged speech sparrow chicks saw Lin Yuan, they immediately cheered and manipulated the wind element to simulate a human-like voice. Just like how Lin Yuan heard 5 "Hello, Daddy." When Lin Yuan heard these 5 "Hello, Daddy," he touched the 5 little fellows' little heads intimately and said, "Daddy will raise your grade and quality in a while. Daddy will raise your levels and grades in a while, and then I'll sell the 5 of you for a good price." First update. Seeking recommendation votes. Monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 433. It wasn't an easy task for fays to communicate with humans normally. Many fays would need to reach suzerain in order to communicate with humans normally. When the winged speech sparrow was at the normal level, it was able to use the wind to simulate sounds to communicate with humans. It was a very rare thing. Moreover, after the winged speech sparrow advanced to the bronze rank, it would evolve into a wind chain sparrow. The wind chain sparrow could control the wind element to form chains to bind and pull the target. It was considered a support-type fey with stronger control abilities. The wind chains of a high-grade wind chain sparrow could even help the contractor grab fays or spiritual ingredients from the bottom of the sea. To spirit chi professionals who made a living by the sea, it was a rare fey. If these 5 winged speech sparrows stayed with him, even if he could enhance them to bronze epic, he would not be able to help them grow better. Thus, he found 5 good masters for them and gave them 5 suitable willpower runes for free. It could be considered as finding the best future for these 5 winged speech sparrows. He circulated the spiritual power in his body and injected a large amount of spirit chi into the 5 winged speech sparrows. The levels of these 5 winged speech sparrows continued to rise, all the way to the elite epic grade. Lin Yuan found that it was obviously a little crowded to hold the 5 little fellows in his palm. The feathers on the 5 little fellows' bodies were not gorgeous. They were all light green in color, but there was a black topline on their backs. When the 5 winged speech sparrows broke through from elite to bronze, Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. These 5 winged speech sparrows quickly underwent a transformation. Lin Yuan saw that 4 of the 5 little fellows on his palm were still light green, but their feathers had become as hard as bone plates. Its beak and claws also became sharper. On the back of the bird, there was a row of upturned feathers. These upturned feathers were like blades that could greatly increase the speed of the wind chain sparrow. However, when one of the winged speech sparrows was promoted to the bronze level, its body suddenly turned white. Other than that, it was not much different from the other 4 wind chain sparrows. Lin Yuan knew that this winged speech sparrow had mutated when it had evolved. Lin Yuan first raised the grade and quality of these 5 little fellows to bronze X epic. He then used Morbius True Data to check the attributes of the white wind chain sparrow. Fey name, windnet sparrow, spirit species, common bird sparrow, fey grade, bronze, 10/10, fey type, wind, fey quality, epic. After checking its attributes, he found out that this wind chain sparrow had mutated into a windnet sparrow. In Lin Yuan's opinion, he did not know if this mutation should be considered good or bad. However, if one were to weigh the pros and cons, it should be that the pros outweigh the cons. Usually, the wind chain sparrow could use different numbers of wind chains based on its level to control an attack. However, the windnet sparrow could throw out wind nets formed by wind chains. Although the area of effect of the wind net was larger, its strength was far inferior to the wind chain. However, the windnet sparrow was undoubtedly more practical than the wind chain sparrow when harvesting fays in the ocean. Lin Yuan chose the most suitable exclusive skill for these 4 wind chain sparrows and 1 wind net sparrow. Then, Lin Yuan dragged his hand, and the 5 little fellows flapped their wings and flew into the sky. Lin Yuan realized that these 5 little fellows were flying in the same way. Their wings were flapping so fast that Lin Yuan could only see a mass of shadows. What happened next left Lin Yuan dumbfounded. These 5 little fellows were using the wind element to simulate human voices and quarreling in the sky. Lin Yuan felt a little dizzy. Where did these 5 little fellows learn so many vulgarities? Could it be inherited from their mothers? Lin Yuan hurriedly stored these 5 little fellows in the diamond Fei storage box. Lin Yuan originally wanted to find the same buyer for these 5 little fellows so that they would not be separated. However, it now seemed that Lin Yuan felt that he had really thought too much. These 5 little fellows were not brotherly at all. He did not know how much hatred they had accumulated from snatching food in the nest. If Lin Yuan had not stopped them just now, these 5 little fellows would have already started fighting. When Lin Yuan left the Spirit Lock spatial zone, he found that the sun had risen in the Indigo Azure City's sky. He could clearly feel the humidity in this Indigo Azure City's guest house after coming out of the Spirit Lock spatial zone. However, the air had the unique salty smell of the ocean of a coastal city. Lin Yuan was about to find Liu Jie when he found that Liu Jie was already neatly dressed and standing at his door like a guard. Upon seeing Lin Yuan come out, Liu Jie handed over a cup of milkshake in his hand and said, "This milkshake is made with the Gold Mountain Prancing Antelope's antelope milk. This milkshake is made with the milk of the Gold Fei, Mountain Prancing Antelope. It has also added snow rice, which is nutritious and filling. It's much better than the seafood porridge in this guest house. I just saw that the oyster meat in the seafood porridge was at least taken out last night. It's no longer fresh." As Liu Jie spoke, Lin Yuan noticed the squint-eyed lady boss and the squint-eyed boss look at each other. Then, when the squint-eyed lady boss poured porridge for a guest, she deliberately poured a few more pieces of oyster meat. This made Lin Yuan feel a little strange. He hurriedly left the guest house with Liu Jie. Lin Yuan and Liu Jie took the flying Fei to the listening heron chamber of commerce's old mansion. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Liu Jie were both wearing strange masks made of completely jade-textured wood threads. The completely jade-textured wood threads processed from the wood weaving house centipede's body had become a little different from the characteristics of completely jade-textured wood. Completely jade-textured wood threads would emit a faint jade-textured luster even without the contamination of spirit qi. However, the completely jade-textured threads produced from the wood weaving house centipede's body would not have any obvious changes in an environment with a low concentration of spirit qi. When encountering a high concentration of spirit qi, the completely jade-textured threads produced from the wood weaving house centipede's body had a stronger jade-textured luster than the completely jade-textured wood itself. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly heard the mother of Bloodbath's strange and pleasant voice ring in his ears. "If there are any spiritual ingredients containing blood energy in the Indigo Azure Sea market, help me buy more. I'm going to break through to Myth 3 as soon as possible." Lin Yuan replied without the slightest hesitation, "Okay. If there are any spiritual ingredients you like in the Indigo Azure Sea market, just tell me." Lin Yuan naturally would not refuse the mother of Bloodbath's request. Lin Yuan remembered that it had not been long since the mother of Bloodbath had broken through to Myth 2. In such a short time, the mother of Bloodbath was actually preparing to break through to Myth 3. Wasn't this a little too fast? The mother of Bloodbath lurked in Lin Yuan's hair and made a decision. As Lin Yuan began to establish his own faction, the mother of Bloodbath found that its strength was still a little too weak. There was an obvious dividing line between Myth 2 and Myth 3. If it faced an enemy at Myth 3, it would only be killed. However, as Lin Yuan continued to develop his faction, there would be a day when the enemy he faced might be a pinnacle emperor-class existence. At that time, if it was still at this level, it would not be able to help Lin Yuan. It might not even be able to perform its duties as a path protector. The mother of Bloodbath had always had a secret, and that was that it could increase its strength by devouring blood energy infinitely. It was also because of this reason that the mother of Bloodbath did not stay at Diamond Fantasy V for long. It entered Suzerain and immediately began to break through to Myth I. Such advancement had almost caused it to be turned into ashes under the world cleansing. This painful lesson had caused the mother of Bloodbath's grade, which was originally higher than Endless Summer, to fall behind. However, now that Endless Summer was already at Myth 3, it might have a chance to see if it could pass through the world cleansing with Endless Summer's help and reach Myth 3. If it successfully reached Myth 3, it could reach the pinnacle of a myth-breed Fae by quickly devouring blood energy. That was the level of a pinnacle Emperor-class expert. At that time, it would be qualified to nurture the blood law into a small world of blood. With the body of a myth breed, it would dip its fingers into creation, become an existence of a creation breed. Second chapter. Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 434. Early morning. Indigo Azure Sea Market. Lin Yuan was wearing a set of moon-white spirit chi clothes. This set of moon-white spirit chi clothes looked very simple, and only a few subtle designs showed that this moon-white spirit chi clothes were different. Upon closer inspection, one would find many moon-white rice beads strung on this set of clothes. These rice beads were mixed together to form 5 kinds of fortune patterns. When Lin Yuan had given Hu Quan the completely jade-textured spiritual materials, there was a long strip of white sandalwood among the first batch of completely jade-textured wood. This completely jade-textured white sandalwood was simply too small, and Hu Quan could only make a pair of chopsticks. Therefore, this completely jade-textured white sandalwood was left behind. Some time ago, when you had seen the Dragon Phoenix landscape carp evolve into the Mountain River Eternal Life carp and had perhaps found some inspiration. She took the remaining completely jade-textured white sandalwood and the warm brocade silk and chose 5 of the 6 kinds of fortune patterns on the Dragon Phoenix landscape carp's body. She made this moon-white spirit chi clothes. This spirit chi clothes looked unusually low-key on Lin Yuan. But at the same time, it also made Lin Yuan's original youthful spirit become graceful. Lin Yuan looked at the densely packed stalls in front of him and could not help but sigh. There were simply too many stalls in the Indigo Azure Sea Market. These stalls were like a maze that was mixed together. It was unknown how long it would take to walk out of this sea market. Lin Yuan had always thought that the Indigo Azure Sea Market would be dirty and noisy like most spiritual ingredient and Fey trading markets. But now, this Indigo Azure Sea Market was very clean and did not even have any strange smell. Although Lin Yuan did not smell anything strange, Genius, who was in Lin Yuan's arms, wrinkled its little nose and said in a childish voice, "Lin Yuan, the fishy smell here is so strong. Lin Yuan's place has such a strong fishy smell. Genius is almost out of breath." Lin Yuan quickly took out a mint leaf from the diamond Fey storage box, used his fingers to squeeze out the juice from the mint leaf, and put it on Genius' nose. When Listen heard Genius' words and saw Lin Yuan's nose twitching as though he was distinguishing the fishy smell, he explained, "The Indigo Azure Sea Market is the biggest event held by the Indigo Azure City officials once a decade. Therefore, before the Indigo Azure Guards will set up the scene in advance and let the Sea Serpent Aura Coral release the Sea Serpent Aura. This causes the Spirit Chi professionals who trade in the Indigo Azure Sea Market to be affected by the Sea Serpent Aura and not be able to smell the peculiar smell. However, most of the Fae's sense of smell is more developed than Spirit Chi professionals, and they are more immune to the Sea Serpent Gas Coral's Sea Serpent Gas. Therefore, the Faes can smell the market." When Lin Yuan heard Listen's explanation, he felt that Indigo Azure City's officials were really talented. However, what was the difference between this and breathing through the mouth instead of the nose because you were afraid of smelling shit? Lin Yuan looked at Genius' sickly appearance and could only put it back into the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan couldn't understand. Genius was clearly a feline fae, but it didn't like to eat fish. Every time it smelled fish, it would hide far away. On the contrary, he liked to eat the pork of the blackback mountain boar just like him. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly heard a few violent hisses, which were not far from his ears. Lin Yuan looked in the direction of the hissing and saw 3 blood-red snake species fays locked in an iron cage made of metal spiritual materials. These 3 blood-red snake species fays were violently hitting the iron cage with their bodies. However, the bodies of these 3 snake fays collided with the iron cage. Although the sound was not small, the iron cage was not damaged at all. The vendor selling these 3 blood-red snake species fays hurriedly picked up the stone bowl at the side. He sprinkled the yellow powder in the stone bowl on these 3 blood-red snake species phase. When these 3 blood-red snake species phase felt the yellow powder, they immediately became exhausted, and their hissing weakened a lot. When Liu Jie saw this scene, he sighed and said, "They actually used realgar to sprinkle these 3 red water blood snakes." He actually used realgar to scatter the 3 red water blood snakes. Fays like the red water blood snakes that rely on blood energy to survive are most afraid of realgar. Just by sprinkling a large amount of realgar powder on it, the red water blood snake's origin will be slightly damaged in a short while. If he splashes it 3 times like this, I'm afraid that these 3 young red water blood snakes will die. Lin Yuan frowned. The realgar would enter the red water blood snake's blood through its scales. The red water blood snake was a kind of fey that relied on blood to survive. When realgar fused into the blood, it might only have a suppressive effect on other snake species fays. However, it was fatal to the red water blood snakes. It was obvious that this vendor was not a creation master and did not know much about fays like the red water blood snakes. This vendor should have just happened to catch these 3 red water blood snakes in the wilderness and happened to be in the Indigo Azure Sea market. Thus, he sold the red water blood snakes at the Indigo Azure Sea market. Although the red water blood snakes were very rare, very few spirit chi professionals would be willing to contract them. After the red water blood snakes were nurtured to become stronger, the surface of their scales would carry a layer of extremely toxic blood clotting toxin. This blood clotting toxin might not be harmful to the contractor, but it would affect the other phase that the contractor contracted. This made it so that spirit chi professionals who had contracted the red water blood snakes could not contract other phase. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath's strange and pleasant voice rang in his ears. "Lin Yuan, these 3 red water blood snakes actually have a faint trace of hornless dragon bloodline. Quickly help me buy these 3 little fellows." The mother of Bloodbath's voice carried a hint of urgency. Lin Yuan did not understand what the mother of Bloodbath meant. If these 3 red water blood snakes had the bloodline of a hornless dragon, then buying them would be a great bargain. If not for the fact that the mother of Bloodbath had comprehended the blood law rune, even if there were other myth breed fays with a higher grade than the mother of Bloodbath, the mother of Bloodbath would not be able to defeat them. Even the mother of Bloodbath could not easily sense the hornless dragon bloodline hidden in these 3 little fellows. However, if the mother of Bloodbath wanted to break through to Myth 3, it would undoubtedly need a large amount of blood energy. The blood energy in these 3 red water blood snakes was too little and was undoubtedly useless to the mother of Bloodbath. Could it be that the mother of Bloodbath wanted to buy these 3 red water blood snakes and eat them like spicy strips? The mother of Bloodbath seemed to have sensed Lin Yuan's strange expression, and that strange and pleasant voice explained with a trace of helplessness. "I don't want the blood energy in these 3 little fellows. I want to nurture them well." After hearing the mother of Bloodbath's words, a strange thought suddenly flashed in Lin Yuan's mind. Is the mother of Bloodbath going to carry out a naughty husband nurturing plan? Is the mother of Bloodbath going to carry out a naughty husband nurturing plan? First update. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 435. It would take a lot of time to nurture these 3 red water blood snakes. Moreover, it was not certain whether they were male or female. What if hubby nurtured sisters? Oh my god, that would be a huge loss. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard the mother of Bloodbath speak again. This way, the exclusive skill I comprehended as a myth breed can finally be put to use in the future. This was the second time Lin Yuan had heard the mother of Bloodbath mention its exclusive skill. The last time Lin Yuan had heard it mention its exclusive skill was on the long-backed swan's back. At that time, the mother of Bloodbath had said that its exclusive skill was good at concealment. Lin Yuan had never used Morbius True Data to check the mother of Bloodbath's exclusive skill. This time, Lin Yuan could not resist his curiosity and used Morbius True Data to check the mother of Bloodbath's exclusive skill. Fey name, Mother of Bloodbath, Fey species, bird-catching arachnid Caliceri, Fey grade, suzerain, 7/10, Fey type, blood, Fey quality, Myth 2, blood law, abilities Sad Smiley execution stinger, inject blood energy into the target's body through 8 sharp Caliceri to control the target's blood. All-seeing eye, The spider eyes look directly at the blood core in the target's body and predict the target's next actions based on the blood flow. 8. Directional blood. Shock and solidify the target's blood and use the changes in the blood form to destroy the target's body. At the same time, control the blood to flow out of the target's body through the target's 8 orifices. Spider form attachment. Condense one's own blood energy into a blood core and activate the blood core to withstand external attacks. Blood grasp. When controlling the target's blood, one can temporarily control the target's body to carry out actions through the blood flow in the target's body. Blood embrace. Accept the surrounding blood energy and devour it into one's body. Temporarily increase one's strength through the blood energy and then use the blood energy to slowly heal injuries. Exclusive skill. Sad smiley desire spider body. Increase one's affinity with blood energy so that the body will not reject the excessive blood energy. Instead, it will transform the excessive blood energy into a new stomach sac to store the blood energy. After devouring the blood energy and purifying it in the body, the blood energy can be directly absorbed by the body. Stealth spider shadow. Stop the flow of one's blood and chi, conceal all one's aura, and transform into a state of nothingness. External blood bone. Fuse one's shed spider teeth into another young Fae's body, allowing the other young Fae to become one's external blood bone. The external blood bone's strength cannot be higher than one's own strength. After seeing the mother of bloodbath's attributes, Lin Yuan did not know what to say for a moment. He knew that when Faes became myth breeds, their willpower runes would transform into law runes, and the power of law would be added to their abilities. From there, it would allow the Fae's previously comprehended abilities to fuse with its own comprehended laws and produce a qualitative change. After looking at the mother of bloodbath's true data, he knew that the mother of bloodbath had given him the red crystal spider. In fact, it was the blood core condensed by the mother of bloodbath's arachnid attachment. Based on this true data, Lin Yuan understood why the mother of bloodbath was qualified to say that it was going to reach myth 3 when it had only reached myth 2. The mother of bloodbath's diamond skill, blood embrace, was an enhancement and recovery skill. However, after blood embrace was combined with the exclusive skill, desire spider body, it allowed the mother of bloodbath to have the ability to constantly devour blood energy and then let this blood energy become a condition for its own strength without any hindrance. This was Lin Yuan's first time seeing a myth breed phase true data. After truly seeing a myth breed phase true data, just by looking at its abilities and exclusive skills, Lin Yuan knew how strong a myth breed Fae was. Those 3 red water blood snakes should be the Faes that the mother of bloodbath wanted to use to cultivate into external blood bones. The mother of bloodbath's exclusive skill, external blood bone, needed the mother of bloodbath's shed spider teeth. Spider Faes would shed their spider teeth about every 100 years. Since the mother of bloodbath needed 3 red water blood snakes, it meant that it was at least 300 years old now. For a wild Fae, becoming a suzerain myth 2 Fae in 300 years was extremely rare. This showed how talented the mother of bloodbath was. Lin Yuan walked up to the vendor and said, "Boss, these 3 snake Faes hissed very loudly just now. Boss, these 3 snake Faes hissed very loudly just now, and they look quite energetic. May I know how many radiance dollars you are willing to sell them?" The vendor's eyes lit up when he heard Lin Yuan's words. He hadn't even opened his shop yet. The vendor hurriedly pointed to the big water trough next to the iron cage containing the red water blood snakes and said, "I mainly sell deep-sea butterfly shells. I mainly sell deep-sea butterfly shells. Look at how big these deep-sea butterfly shells are. The beads inside must be of good quality. After digging out the pearl, these 2 pieces of butterfly shells can be polished and hung on water-type Faes to increase their advancement speed." Lin Yuan had long noticed this big water trough. However, he had no interest in the deep-sea butterfly shells and the pearls produced by them. The quality of the deep-sea butterfly shells in this water trough was not as good as what he fed the spirit-drawing ichthyosaur, Blackie. If the deep-sea butterfly shells could increase the advancement speed of water-type Faes, it was indeed possible. This was because the butterfly shells had a weak ability to gather water elements. It was just that the speed of gathering water elements was too slow, but it was better than nothing. Lin Yuan shook his head and still pointed to the 3 red water blood snakes. "Boss, I want these 3 small snakes." The vendor's face fell as soon as he heard that. These 3 snake fays are all bronze and not worth much money. I don't want to buy them alone. If you want them, buy the 5 deep-sea butterfly shells in my water trough, and I'll give you these 3 snake fays. When Lin Yuan had seen this vendor sprinkle realgar powder on the 3 red water blood snakes, he had felt that this vendor should not know the red water blood snakes. This vendor was originally doing business. No matter how cruel he would not be willing to damage the fays he was selling. Now, it seemed that this vendor really did not know the red water blood snakes. Due to the blood-clotting toxin on the surface of the red water blood snakes, very few people needed them. However, the price on StarWeb was about $70 radiance. Lin Yuan originally planned to buy these 3 red water blood snakes for $200 radiance. However, this vendor actually said that as long as he bought the 5 deep-sea butterfly shells in the water trough, he would give these 3 red water blood snakes to him. In that case, this vendor would lose his pant. Lin Yuan looked at the deep-sea butterfly shells in the water trough and felt that he needed to use true data to cheat. Second update. Seeking recommendation votes. Monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 436. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard the vendor knock on the water tank and say, "Take a look at the price of these deep-sea butterfly shells first. Let's take a look at the price of this deep-sea butterfly clam first, and then you can decide whether to open it or not. You have to pay for everything here." Lin Yuan saw that there was a black label on the large water tank in front of him that said, "Don't worry." It said, $10 radiance for 1 deep-sea butterfly shell. No bargaining. Bargainer's rice pot will explode. Lin Yuan blinked when he saw the price. This vendor was too ruthless. How could a person stand an exploding rice pot? It was fine if the steamed rice exploded, but if it was cooked porridge, it was equivalent to receiving a scalding and plastic surgery service. The deep-sea butterfly shells sold by this vendor were just the most ordinary of the deep-sea butterfly shells, and the selling price on StarWeb was $5 radiance at most. In this indigo azure sea market, this kind of thing would actually be twice the price on StarWeb. This vendor's asking price was really not ambiguous. Buying deep-sea butterfly shells was a gamble. If the quality of the shell beads was good, not only could he get back the cost, but he could also make a profit. He could even make a profit. However, Lin Yuan had just used Morbius True Data Check to check the 30-odd deep-sea butterfly shells in this large water tank. After checking, Lin Yuan found that these 30 deep-sea butterfly shells were all substandard shells without shell beads. Moreover, these 30 deep-sea butterfly shells had been seriously corroded in the deep sea. The seriously corroded deep-sea butterfly shells could no longer be polished into butterfly shell flowers for fays to eat and slowly stimulate the dragon species bloodline in the fae. Such shells could at most be ground into shell powder and sprinkled in a water body to improve the water body's environment. The substandard shells in the water tank should be the worst batch of butterfly shells left after layers of screening. However, these substandard shells had been faked by the vendor. This vendor's counterfeiting methods were extremely high. If Lin Yuan had not used true data to check these deep-sea butterfly shells, Lin Yuan had really made a mistake. Lin Yuan did not expect that someone would actually take out such substandard shells of such quality to sell openly. The price of such substandard shells on StarWeb was less than $1 radiance. The radiance dollars this vendor spent to fake them were higher than the price of the deep-sea butterfly shells of this quality. Such a business was simply evil. Lin Yuan naturally wouldn't buy such a deep-sea butterfly shell. Buying such a substandard shell was no different from spending $50 radiance to buy a pile of junk. The vendor looked at the masked youth in front of him, who kept looking at the deep-sea butterfly shells in the water tank. He looked very serious, as though he was thinking about which one to buy. He couldn't help but hum a song in his heart. Counterfeiting is a natural thing to do. The technique is at the peak of perfection. Success was effortless. I relied on swindling and deceiving. Study painstakingly, for the sake of skill transmission. It seems like he has forgotten his principles for the sake of profit, but he has never stopped striving to improve himself. Even if lightning strikes us, we must do our best. Just as the peddler was getting excited, the masked young man pointed at the small cages beside the large tank that contained the deep-sea butterfly shells. "Boss, I see that in addition to the deep-sea butterfly shells, you also sell some marine creatures. I think that gold-green oxygen sea anemone is not bad. Why don't I buy this gold-green oxygen sea anemone and you give me those 3 snake fays? How about it? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the vendor hurriedly sized him up. It was as if he was trying to see if the masked young man in front of him had noticed something from these deep-sea butterfly shells. The peddler noticed that the eyes behind the strange mask were staring at him, and there was a faint smile on the corners of the mouth. This smile made the peddler, who was originally in high spirits, feel a little nervous. The Indigo Azure Sea Market was organized by Indigo Azure City, and the Indigo Azure Guard was fully responsible for managing it. It could be said that it was extremely strict. Although his act of forgery was not that bad. However, if others found out, he would be expelled from the Indigo Azure Guard. However, if the vendor next to him knew about it and helped him promote it, what would he gain from the Indigo Azure Sea Market? Wasn't he trying so hard to study the art of counterfeiting so that he could lie at home every day for the next 10 years before the next Indigo Azure Sea Market? Cheen Walla, will never work for others. The peddler quickly changed the topic. I originally planned to trade for that green oxygen sea anemone. You're my first customer today, and we hit it off. I'll sell it to you for 4,000 radiance dollars. Lin Yuan was a little speechless. Why do you make it sound like we're good brothers and I'm taking advantage of you? At that moment, Listen, who was standing next to Lin Yuan, said to the vendor. Boss, the Indigo Azure Sea Market will only be open for 3 days. It won't be easy to sell so many wild fays that you caught. Look, the tentacles of this gold-green oxygen sea anemone are already curled up. If we don't sell it quickly, it won't fetch a high price. The vendor at the stall glanced at the gold-green oxygen sea anemone and its slightly curled tentacles. He quickly grabbed a bucket of seawater mixed with energy or powder and poured it on the green oxygen sea anemone. However, when the seawater mixed with energy or powder was poured on the green oxygen sea anemone's body, it could only maintain the current state of the green oxygen sea anemone. It could not improve its condition. If marine fays were to be sold on land, their condition would be greatly reduced after leaving the sea for a period of time. After a long time, it would even affect the fays' roots. The vendor looked at the green oxygen sea anemone's current state and cursed angrily. It's really this money-losing thing. Give me some reaction after drinking this mouthful of water. Why are you still half dead? Lin Yuan watched as the vendor hurriedly dealt with these fays. He could not help but wonder why there would be people who were so black-hearted and stupid when doing business. Although aquatic fays' condition would decline once they left the water, they were much stronger than aquatic fays. Next to these aquatic fays, there was a fay that could release spirit chi. He wanted the fay that could release spirit chi to release spirit chi for the aquatic fays to absorb. Then, even if these aquatic fays left the water for 3 days, they would be able to fully support it. Even fays like the deep-sea butterfly shells, which were very sensitive to spirit chi. Even if they left the sea and were raised in a tank, they could still grow quickly under the effect of spirit chi. The stalls at the side all had fays that could release spirit chi. Among the fays that could release spirit chi at the other stalls, the most common was the spirit siphon goldfish. However, this vendor had not prepared anything. Even if he had learned from the other stalls, he would not have been as flustered as he was now. Boss, did you notice that the other stalls' fays are more flexible? The other stalls' fays like the green oxygen sea anemone don't need to use seawater mixed with energy or powder at all. The first one was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 437. When the vendor heard Lin Yuan's words, his suppressed anger was suddenly ignited. With a vigorous step, he kicked the iron cage containing the 3 red water blood snakes and cursed. These 3 trash snakes ate all 3 of my spirit siphon goldfish. It's really a big loss. At that moment, the vendor looked at the blackboard on the sink that said, 10 radiance dollars for 1 deep-water butterfly shell. No bargaining. Bargainer's rice pot will explode. He felt that it should be changed to 12 radiance dollars for 1 deep-water butterfly shell. No bargaining. Bargainer's front teeth will explode. As long as the vendor entered the Indigo Azure Sea Market, he was not allowed to go out. Going out was equivalent to giving up the right to set up a stall in the indigo azure sea market. He had spent $150 radiance to buy a stall card for 3 days. If he went out midway, he would lose all of the $150 radiance. Moreover, after the indigo azure sea market started, no supplies were allowed to be transported in through ostrich logistics. There was no way he could buy a spirit siphon goldfish. When Lin Yuan saw the vendor's reaction, he chuckled. He summoned a Bronze Eye Elite 5 Fortune Ranchu from the Spirit Lock spatial zone. After the Bronze Eye Elite Spirit Siphon Goldfish was summoned, rich spirit chi immediately spread out. The masks made of completely jade-textured silk threads and the completely jade-textured white sandalwood rice beads embroidered on Lin Yuan's moonwhite spirit chi clothes lit up with a hazy jade-textured luster. However, the concentration of spirit chi released by this bronze spirit siphon goldfish was not too strong. Therefore, the luster emitted by Lin Yuan's and Liu Jie's masks made of completely jade-textured wood silk threads was not very obvious under this clear sun. However, the luster of the completely jade-textured white sandalwood rice beads on Lin Yuan's body made the 5 kinds of blessings patterns particularly obvious, making Lin Yuan look exceptionally outstanding. The vendor looked curiously at the shining rice beads on Lin Yuan's body and asked, "Brother, aren't you heavy with the fluorite strung on your body? Brother, aren't you heavy with the fluorite strung on your body?" Then, the vendor's gaze never left the palm-sized 5 Fortune Ranchu on Lin Yuan's palm. His eyes were full of unconcealable desire. Upon hearing the peddler's words, Listen blinked in astonishment. This vendor was really knowledgeable. He actually mistook the completely jade-textured white sandalwood for fluorite. Fluorite, which emitted a luster under the sun, was generally used to make stone sculptures. Even the most vulgar person would not embroider fluorite on their body as a decoration. Lin Yuan ignored the peddler's words and asked, "Boss, are you interested in this Bronze Eye Elite 5 Fortune Ranchu?" This 5 Fortune Ranchu reached the excellent grade at Bronze 1. There's a high chance that it will break through to the flawless grade or even epic grade at Bronze 10. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the hawker gulped down his saliva and asked, "You want to exchange this spirit siphon goldfish for my green oxygen sea anemone? I'm willing to give you all the deep-sea butterfly shells in this tank." The corners of Lin Yuan's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Why does this vendor always want to scam me? There are a total of more than 600 deep-sea butterfly shells in your tank. I'll give you the star web price of $5 radiance each. Give me another 3,000 radiance, and I'll give you this Bronze Eye Elite Spirit Siphon Goldfish. When the 5 Fortune Ranchu was at Elite Eye Elite, it could be sold for about $60 radiance. Phase like the Spirit Siphon Goldfish, which were extremely difficult to advance, could reach Bronze Eye Elite. If it was a trade, the price should be about 2,500 radiance. Since the 5 Fortune Ranchu belonged to the auspicious category, its price was a little more than double that of ordinary Spirit Siphon Goldfish. It was about 5,500 radiance. Lin Yuan wanted to exchange for the gold-green oxygen sea anemone in the hawker's hands because it could constantly filter out oxygen in the seawater. It was like a natural oxygen cylinder that could continuously supply oxygen. Green oxygen sea anemones were very common in coastal cities like the Indigo Azure Sea. The green oxygen sea anemone that was in a bad state just now was worth about 3,000 radiance. Lin Yuan had asked the hawker to give him another 3,000 radiance because he clearly intended to earn 500 radiance from this hawker who always wanted to scam him. The hawker was obviously a little hesitant when he heard Lin Yuan's offer. If he used the gold-green oxygen sea anemone and 3,000 radiance to exchange for the 5 Fortune Ranchu, if he sold everything in this Indigo Azure Sea market, he would make a huge profit. Then, he would not be able to lie down for the next 10 years and would have to work for others. At that moment, Lin Yuan said to the hawker, "The 5 Fortune Ranchu is considered a fine product among spirit siphon goldfish and has a very large market. Even if you want to sell this 5 Fortune Ranchu after the sea market, it will be very convenient for you to do so. Moreover, as long as the Bronze Eye Elite Spirit Siphon Goldfish is successfully promoted to flawless, its price can increase by more than 10 times in the blink of an eye." The hawker only felt that the youth in front of him, who was constantly tempting him to buy the 5 fortune ranchu, was like a devil. Lin Yuan was using a big cheese to lure him to the edge of the cliff and then stepping on empty air. The hawker did not know why, but he suddenly felt a sense of crisis in his heart. But soon, this sense of crisis was covered up by longing. This big cheese is too fragrant. The hawker gritted his teeth and slapped his thigh fiercely. Brother, I'll buy it. Lin Yuan immediately exchanged the goods with this hawker. At that moment, the 3 red water blood snakes with the hornless dragon bloodline and the gold-green oxygen sea anemone that the mother of Bloodbath needed were all in Lin Yuan's possession. At that moment, a very gentle voice echoed not far away. Brother, I don't know if you are willing to part with these 3 red water blood snakes. I'm willing to buy them for 100 radiance dollars each. This gentle voice made the eyes of the hawker, who was originally in love with the 5 fortune ranchu, widen. At that moment, the hawker felt that this person couldn't be thinking of putting on an act with this youth wearing a strange mask, right? But immediately after, the hawker exclaimed, F***CK. I seem to have just given away these 3 trash snake fays for free. Why are they selling for 100 radiance dollars each? Lin Yuan turned around and saw a thin and weak youth sitting in a wheelchair, giving off an elegant scholarly aura. However, this thin youth with the scholarly air used a blanket to cover his legs. It seemed that there was something wrong with his legs. Looking at the youth's thin appearance, Lin Yuan felt that this thin youth should not have injured his legs but had been disabled for many years. Lin Yuan said, I'm very interested in these 3 red water blood snakes, so I really can't part with them. Second update. Seeking recommendation votes. Monthly votes. Love you guys. Button was hospitalized. When he suddenly knew that he had received a recommendation, he could only try his best to update. Thank you for everyone's support. End of this chapter. Chapter 438. After saying that, Lin Yuan stored the cage containing the 3 red water blood snakes and the cage containing the gold-green oxygen sea anemone into his diamond face storage box. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt a few sharp auras sweeping toward him. A middle-aged man with 3 scars on his face standing behind the thin youth said in a deep voice, Why don't you talk to our young master? Why don't you talk to our young master? The price of the red water blood snake is only around 70 radiance dollars. Before the middle-aged man with 3 scars on his face could finish speaking, his figure paused. At this moment, the skinny young man furrowed his brows and glanced behind him as he spoke. Uncle Fu, it's not like home outside. Keep your temper in check. After saying that, the thin youth turned around and nodded apologetically at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan didn't care. Just as he was about to leave with Liu Jie and listen, Lin Yuan saw the vendor pull out a smile that was uglier than crying. You knew that those 3 snake fays were red water blood snakes? Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded and thought to himself. Not only do I know that these 3 snake fays are red water blood snakes, but I also know that they have the hornless dragon bloodline in their bodies. If he told this vendor, Lin Yuan was really afraid that the vendor would cry. Although Lin Yuan thought so, he said, Boss, we're leaving. Boss, we're leaving. You have to nurture that bronze eye elite spirit siphon goldfish well. When the vendor heard Lin Yuan's words, he stomped his feet in anger. However, when he saw the faint smile on Lin Yuan's face, the vendor's hair suddenly stood on end for some reason. Immediately after, the vendor felt an unusual pain in the ass. He had wanted to make a big profit at the beginning. In the end, he didn't make any profit and lost 300 radiance dollars. If he hadn't eagerly given away the 3 red water blood snakes, he could have earned 300 radiance dollars for them. He might even be able to use these 3 red water blood snakes to sell the deep water butterfly shells to this little cripple in the wheelchair. The more he thought about it, the more his heart ached. He carefully placed the spirit siphon goldfish he had bought into the water tank where these deep water butterfly shells were kept. When the hawker sensed that his aquatic fays were in a better state, he felt a little better. He stood in the middle of the stall, waiting for the fat sheep to arrive. Lin Yuan was currently communicating with the mother of Bloodbath. Why do you have a smirk on your face? Is there something wrong with the spirit siphon goldfish you gave to that vendor? Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan hurriedly shook his head. Don't malign me. This 5 fortune ranchu is healthy, and it has a pretty good exclusive skill. The mother of Bloodbath had not carefully observed the spirit siphon goldfish that Lin Yuan had traded. However, upon seeing the strange smile on Lin Yuan's face, the mother of Bloodbath knew that there was definitely a problem with this 5-fortune ranchu. He just didn't know what the problem was. Lin Yuan felt that the next time he saw this vendor, he would definitely jump up and beat him up. He exchanged for the spirit siphon goldfish's exclusive skill, turbidity removal. The exclusive skill, impurity removal, could remove the impurities from the surface of other Fae within the user's body. The second-rate shells in the tank were coated with a layer of artificial glaze that was almost indistinguishable from the finest butterfly shells. With this 5-fortune ranchu's exclusive skill, turbidity removal, he believed that in less than 2 hours, the glaze attached to the surface of these second-rate shells would be stripped off. This 5-fortune ranchu with turbidity removal was a spirit siphon goldfish. Lin Yuan had specially picked it out from the school of fish in the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan felt that the Indigo Azure City officials should give him a silk banner with the words Swindler Killer printed on it. Lin Yuan sensed the state of the 3 red water blood snakes in the amber button-shaped diamond Fae storage box. They were obviously better than when they had just been sprinkled with realgar powder. Lin Yuan asked the mother of Bloodbath. Mother of Bloodbath, do you have any requirements for the quality of those 3 red water blood snakes? The mother of Bloodbath replied with some melancholy. These 3 red water blood snakes have the hornless dragon bloodline and are exceptionally talented. The best way is to let these 3 red water blood snakes awaken the hornless dragon bloodline in their bodies at bronze and then promote their quality to epic. My nurturing of 3 red water blood snakes is actually similar to you humans' nurturing phase. However, these 3 scarlet water blood snakes don't need to comprehend willpower runes. Instead, they can share my blood law. Lin Yuan replied after hearing the mother of Bloodbath's words. Then leave these 3 red water blood snakes with me for now. Leave the awakening of bloodlines and strengthening of grades to me as well. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's subconscious words, the mother of Bloodbath was silent for a moment before softly spitting out a word. All right. He recalled the tender youth that needed his protection at all times in Millstone Town. Now, he had begun to take on all the responsibilities for him. This was something that even he could not do. In the short span of half a year, the young and inexperienced boy had unknowingly grown up. The skinny young man sitting in a wheelchair in front of the stall noticed that the person behind him did not move for a long time and asked, "Uncle Fu, it's rare for you to come out. Push me to the front." The skinny youth's words seemed to have awakened the middle-aged man with the 3 scars on his face. The middle-aged man with 3 scars on his face woke up with a start. He subconsciously pushed the wheelchair in his hand, causing the skinny young man sitting in the wheelchair to feel a jolt. The middle-aged man with 3 scars on his face said hurriedly. This subordinate was absent-minded and disturbed 3rd young master. The skinny young man did not mind and asked curiously, "I remember that although Uncle Fu's Ice Heart lionfish hasn't advanced to myth breed, it has already broken through to suzerain. Why would it be distracted?" The middle-aged man with 3 scars on his face said with a stern expression. "Just now, when I used my aura to suppress the masked youth, all the blood in my body started to go out of control. The blood rushed to my brain and heart, and I lost my focus." The skinny young man who was addressed as 3rd young master narrowed his eyes when he heard this, and a somewhat evil smile appeared on his gentle, scholarly face. "Reverse blood flow, messing up your mind? How interesting." Lin Yuan, Liu Jie, and Listen had bought a lot of things in the past few hours in the Indigo Azure Sea Market. Liu Jie and Listen watched as Lin Yuan purchased large quantities of phase and spiritual ingredients that grew in the ocean. Among them, Lin Yuan would only buy particularly high-quality or mutated marine phase. Most of them were rare spiritual ingredients that could only be produced in the ocean. Lin Yuan's harvest was quite bountiful as he spent a lot of resources. Listen and Liu Jie had long understood Lin Yuan's deep foundation. At this moment, they could not help but refresh their understanding of Lin Yuan's foundation again and again. First, end of this chapter. Chapter 439. When Lin Yuan had bought the phase and spiritual materials, Listen had noticed the difference between him and the other young masters of the major factions. Lin Yuan had a deep foundation, but he would not squander it. When Lin Yuan purchased the spiritual ingredients and phase, he controlled the price very well and did not let himself suffer a loss. It could be said that Lin Yuan's purchases might look like he was sweeping up a lot of goods, but upon closer inspection, each transaction was more like picking up scraps. In Lisan's eyes, Lin Yuan was earning resources while consuming. Through the purchase of phase and spiritual ingredients, the snowball of resources that he could control was getting bigger and bigger. Lisan admired this kind of vision and ability. At that moment, Lin Yuan was speaking to the elder in front of the stall. "Boss, the blood coral crystals you sold belong to me now." The old man looked at the blood coral crystal with a pained expression. Then, he looked at the 2 pieces of jade-textured agarwood that looked like black crystals in his hand, waved his hand, and said with some heartache, "You got lucky with these blood coral crystals." Lin Yuan said with a laugh, "Boss likes elegance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have preferred this agarwood that has a subtle and undetectable aura but can calm the mind." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the old man at the stall was obviously stunned for a moment. "I like agarwood that is completely jade-textured. What does that have to do with the taste of agarwood?" It was Lin Yuan's turn to be stunned. "Boss, didn't you want this completely jade-textured agarwood to burn?" The old man looked at Lin Yuan with a dumbfounded expression and shouted with trembling lips, "The deal is done. Don't pretend in front of me. Only a fool would be willing to burn this completely jade-textured agarwood and make it into a big thumb ring to wear. That's the best use of it." The more the old man looked at the masked youth in front of him, the more stifled he felt. "You're filling up all the coins. If you are so awesome, why don't you rear a few legend fays at home?" Upon hearing the old man's words, Lin Yuan picked up the blood coral crystal. He pulled Lisan and Liu Jie away. In the depths of the indigo azure sea market, most of the spiritual ingredients and fays sold by the vendors were good things that were rarely seen outside. Such good things would naturally not be sold casually. Instead, they were used by the stall owners to exchange for the fays or spiritual ingredients they needed. This old man wanted to exchange for the completely jade-textured agarwood, and Lin Yuan saw the blood coral crystal containing a lot of blood energy. The blood energy contained in the blood coral crystal was extremely majestic, and it was what the mother of bloodbath needed. Lin Yuan had thought he had met an enthusiast who liked agarwood like him. In the end, this hobbyist was so vulgar that he wanted to make a big ring out of agarwood and wear it on his finger. It would be better to crush the completely jade-textured agarwood and use it as ink to practice calligraphy. At that moment, Liu Jie pointed at a stall in the distance and said, "That's right. Lin Yuan, I really found someone selling water world dimensional lifeforms flesh over there. It's just that this person's selling price is a little ridiculous. He actually wants to use the flesh of dimensional lifeforms of the same grade from the Abyss Dimensional Rift to exchange for the flesh of water world dimensional lifeforms at a 1:10 ratio. Many parts of the demons in the Abyss Dimensional Rift are not cheap. The water world dimensional lifeforms flesh rots in the air and emits a stench. It can be defined as a disgusting biochemical weapon." In Liu Jie's opinion, it was not appropriate to exchange the demon's flesh for the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh, even if it was at a ratio of 1:100. When Lin Yuan heard Liu Jie's words, his eyes lit up as he looked into the distance. Along the way, Lin Yuan had been looking for vendors selling the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh. However, after searching for a while, Lin Yuan could not find a stall. Lin Yuan knew that the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh was too weak, and few people would keep it. However, he did not expect to find any vendors selling the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh in Indigo Azure City's once-in-a-decade Indigo Azure Sea Market, a place that specialized in producing marine resources. Fortunately, he had finally found one. Lin Yuan glanced at the stalls around and said to Lisan and Liu Jie, "Big brother Liu, listen, the two of you walk around too. Big brother Liu, listen, the two of you should also walk around. If you encounter spiritual materials that contain a huge amount of blood chi energy, help me buy them. Also, take a look and see if there are any more suitable resources." After saying that, He handed Listen and Liu Jie a somewhat full golden-threaded brocade pouch. Then, he walked toward the vendor who was exchanging the flesh of the abyss-dimensional rift's lifeforms. Liu Jie and Listen took a look at the golden-threaded brocade pouch and almost dropped it to the ground. Both sachets were filled with 30 Heavenly Maiden-grade fire elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish. This was a huge amount of wealth. Liu Jie said to Listen when he saw that Lin Yuan had walked to the stall to exchange for the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh. You go to the left, I'll go to the right. We'll each go to one side to exchange for resources. Upon hearing that, Listen suddenly said with a mysterious smile. Big brother Liu, do you want to compete to see who can exchange the 30 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls for more resources? Liu Jie replied with a simple and honest smile. Fine, I lost the bet last time and you made me eat 30 sour lemons. This time, let's bet. Whoever loses will eat 50 gold Chaotian peppers. Upon hearing that, Listen felt his entire mouth start to become numb. It was as if his cheeks were swollen and burning with pain. Listen said hurriedly, Brother Liu, 50 gold Chaotian peppers will kill you. Why don't you change it to bronze? Liu Jie glanced at Listen and snorted. Since we're going to bet, let's bet something exciting. If you don't like the gold Chaotian pepper, we can change it to the silver Chaotian pepper. Liu Jie's provocation made Listen clap his hands. Since we're looking for excitement, let's see it through to the end. I would like to exchange 50 gold Chaotian peppers for 1 platinum devil pepper. Do you dare, Brother Liu? There was only one thought in Liu Jie's mind, and that was, if he ate a platinum devil pepper, he would have to sleep for at least a month. This was simply mutual harm. However, even someone like Listen, who was afraid of spicy food, was not afraid. Why should he shrink back? Let's bet. You're not allowed to drink milk an hour after eating. Listen did not expect Liu Jie to really dare to bet and even think about not letting him drink milk. He had an idea and added another condition. What's the big deal if you don't drink milk? If you're capable, drink a whole bowl of iced Coke after eating the platinum devil pepper. Second chapter. Friends who like this book hope to subscribe to it. Sob, sob, sob. Button was afraid that he would not be able to recommend it in the future if the results were not good. Thank you, everyone. Sob, sob, sob. He had not been notified of this recommendation, so he had not saved any chapters. Button had been working hard to write for the past 2 days. Cough, cough. He had updated a total of 30,000 word. In the future, he hoped that everyone could slowly listen to Button's story. Go write in seclusion. There would be another 6 chapters before nightfall, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 440. Liu Jie and Listen looked at each other and felt that the other was a ruthless person. However, at the thought of the taste of the platinum devil ghost pepper, Liu Jie and Listen hurriedly set off. They began to prepare to use the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish in the golden silk brocade pouch to exchange for supplies. The old man, who had just felt that Lin Yuan was pretending, doubted life again. He initially thought that these 2 young men who had just bet in front of his stall were just 2 childish ghosts. He did not expect these 2 childish ghosts to suddenly jump like wolves and finally become wolf annihilation. The combination of these 3 people was a pretentious criminal. 2 wolf annihilations. It was simply too weird. Lin Yuan had already walked to the core area of the Indigo Azure Sea Market. Most of the phase and spiritual materials sold in the edge area of the Indigo Azure Sea Market were relatively ordinary, and there were few things that could make people's eyes light up. However, the closer he got to the core area of the Indigo Azure Sea Market, the higher the preciousness and quality of the spiritual materials and phase that he could exchange. Previously, there was only one way to go in the periphery of the Indigo Azure Sea Market. However, there were more roads in the core area of the Indigo Azure Sea Market. This made Lin Yuan increasingly start to feel that this Indigo Azure Sea Market was like a huge maze. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the layout of this core area was simply extremely unfriendly to people with no sense of direction. The large number of stalls in front of Lin Yuan were the most deserted in front of the middle-aged man who was exchanging water world dimensional lifeforms flesh for abyss dimensional lifeforms flesh. This middle-aged man was also happy to be idle and looked around at the other stalls around like a patroller patrolling the territory. There were a few platinum Fey storage boxes beside him. Upon seeing Lin Yuan walk over, the middle-aged man hurriedly stood up and said, "Little brother, are you exchanging for water world dimensional lifeforms flesh?" The middle-aged man hurriedly stood up and said, "Little brother, are you exchanging for water world dimensional lifeforms flesh?" Lin Yuan nodded and asked, "Uncle, you should have class 3 water world dimensional lifeforms flesh that is equivalent to gold phase, right?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the middle-aged man raised his hand, and Lin Yuan saw that this middle-aged man was wearing 2 somewhat exaggerated rings. The middle-aged man chuckled and said, "I have 2 full diamond Fey storage boxes. I have 2 diamond Fey storage boxes filled with water world dimensional lifeforms flesh, ranging from class 2 to class 5. But let's make an agreement first. If you don't have a diamond Fey storage box, you have to buy these platinum Fey storage boxes in front of me. Otherwise, I don't want to be chased out by my own people." When Lin Yuan heard the middle-aged man's words, he nodded in agreement. He had smelled the smell of water world dimensional lifeforms flesh before. Even the sea serpent gas released by the sea serpent gas coral could not conceal this smell. If the flesh of the water world dimensional lifeforms was taken out, the spirit chi professionals in the indigo azure sea market would probably have a chain reaction of dissolved substances in their stomachs. At the same time, Lin Yuan also found out the middle-aged man's identity from his words. The middle-aged man had said that he didn't want to be chased out, which meant that he was a member of the Indigo Azure Guard. The Indigo Azure Guard was in charge of managing the Indigo Azure market. At the same time, it also explained why this middle-aged man had 2 diamond Fey storage boxes full of high-grade water world dimensional lifeforms flesh. That was because as long as a water world dimensional rift opened in the sea near Indigo Azure City, it would not be able to survive. As long as these water world dimensional lifeforms emerged from the water world dimensional rift and threatened the safety of the residents on the shore of Indigo Azure City, they would be killed. The Indigo Azure Guard was about to move out to exterminate the water world dimensional creatures that were causing trouble. This middle-aged man probably represented the entire Indigo Azure Guard. He wanted to use the Indigo Azure Sea market to see if he could exchange the water world dimensional creature flesh that he had accumulated over the past 10 years for some relatively useful resources. "Uncle, I have a Fey storage box for the water world dimensional lifeforms. I might need more." The middle-aged man laughed heartily when he heard that. "As long as you don't use the flesh and blood of gold water dimensional creatures to fill the sea, I have enough." He took out a platinum Fey storage box from the amber button-shaped diamond Fey storage box. He then began to repack the gold abyss demon's flesh in the leaf-shaped diamond Fey storage box into the platinum Fey storage box. He stored about half of the remaining 3,000 class 3 demons' flesh in the leaf-shaped diamond Fey storage box. He then handed the platinum Fey storage box containing 1,500 sets of demon flesh to the middle-aged man in front of him. The middle-aged man took the platinum Fey storage box from Lin Yuan and coughed strangely. Then, he asked in surprise, "You want to use so much grade 3 demon flesh to exchange for the grade 3 water world dimensional creature flesh?" Lin Yuan nodded. If Red Thorn wanted to increase its level and quality, it was most suitable to devour the flesh of class 3 dimensional lifeforms at the silver fantasy breed stage. Red Thorn wasn't picky with food. After all, it absorbed the flesh energy from dimensional creatures' flesh. Therefore, eating the flesh of demon dimensional creatures and the flesh of water world dimensional creatures wasn't much different in essence. Red Thorn had already mastered the unique acidic and withering characteristics of the demon dimensional lifeforms' flesh after devouring them in large quantities. Moreover, it can be inherited in the child ramets and ramets produced by spores. Therefore, for Red Thorn, eating the flesh of class 3 demons was only digesting the flesh energy. During this time, Lin Yuan had observed Red Thorn and found that it had devoured the flesh of nearly 100 gold water world dimensional lifeforms. Apart from mutating the 12 1-meter-long, useless petals of red thorns bewitching flowers into gill-shaped petals. It had also allowed red thorn to faintly grasp the water world dimensional lifeform's rotten characteristics. This rotten characteristic did not mean that after red thorn injured the target, it would let the target rot. Instead, after the child ramets and ramets summoned by red thorn died, they would quickly rot and become nutrients for other living child ramets and ramets to absorb. Although red thorn's endurance had been greatly enhanced after having the Eye of Relinquish. However, if red thorn fully grasped the water world dimensional lifeform's rotten characteristics, it could undoubtedly increase red thorn's endurance again. Endurance was the guarantee of red thorn's lush and stable sea of flowers, so the more the better. In a short while, Lin Yuan and the middle-aged man finished exchanging this large batch of water world dimensional lifeform's flesh. After the exchange was completed, the middle-aged man gave Lin Yuan the flesh of 15,000 gold water world dimensional lifeforms. He also gave Lin Yuan an additional 500 gold water world dimensional lifeforms flesh. After thinking for a while, Lin Yuan said to the middle-aged man, "Uncle, I wonder if you can leave me your contact information." "I don't know if I can leave you with a contact information. I may need more water world dimensional lifeforms flesh in the future. It'll be convenient for us to trade then. Thirdly, your little fairy is my reward." End of this chapter. Chapter 441. When the middle-aged man heard that, he was naturally very happy and laughed heartily. Deal. In the future, no matter what kind of dimensional lifeforms flesh you use to exchange for water world dimensional lifeforms flesh, you can do it with me. But if you use alien insect dimensional lifeforms flesh to exchange for water world dimensional lifeforms flesh, the exchange ratio won't be as large as that of abyss dimensional lifeforms. Lin Yuan didn't care. As long as he could exchange for water world dimensional lifeforms flesh, no matter what the ratio was, it was a profit for him. Lin Yuan couldn't help but have the idea of exchanging all the dimensional lifeforms flesh in the leaf-shaped diamond Fey storage box with water world dimensional lifeforms flesh. But then, Lin Yuan dispelled this idea. Anyway, he could contact this middle-aged man in the future. Even if he left the Indigo Azure Sea market, there would be opportunities to exchange through ostrich logistics. The flesh of 15,500 gold water world dimensional creatures was enough for Red Thorn to digest and devour for a long period of time. Before Lin Yuan left the middle-aged man's stall, he headed in a different direction from Liu Jie and listened. Along the way, Lin Yuan didn't bid or buy anything again. There were many treasures in this world. In the core area of the Indigo Azure Sea market, even Lin Yuan had to pay a great price to buy many precious spiritual materials and fays. Therefore, as long as he bid, the chips in his hands would decrease. It was very likely that when he encountered fays or spiritual materials that he really needed in the future, he wouldn't be able to take out the capital to bid with others. Lin Yuan saw that in front of many stalls, there were buyers bidding for the same fey and spiritual materials. Even if the value of the spiritual materials taken out by the buyers in the bidding dispute was the same, there would be no difference. However, for the stall owners, there would always be more suitable fays and spiritual materials after weighing the pros and cons. In the end, it was up to the stall owners to decide who they would exchange with. Lin Yuan walked all the way. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath's strange and pleasant voice was full of urgency. "Lin Yuan, there's an extremely rich blood energy ahead. It's huge and pure, and it's very useful to me." Lin Yuan hurriedly followed the mother of Bloodbath's guidance to a stall. He found a young man and a young woman standing in front of this stall. The short-haired young woman was carefully looking at a long crimson vine. Lin Yuan saw many pentagonal leaves growing on the crimson vine. The leaves were dark green in color, but there were many scarlet vein-like veins on the dark green leaves. There was a fracture on the upper branch of the vine, and dark red juice condensed on the surface of the fracture like a coagulated blood scab. Lin Yuan immediately recognized that this vine-like fey was not an ordinary fey. It was a heaven and earth spirit object, the blood brew grapevine. The bloody scab should be from the stall's owner, who had come to the Indigo Azure Sea market to trade for the blood brew grapevine. He had cut a bunch of blood brew grapes from the blood brew grapevine in advance, leaving behind a wound. The short-haired woman in front of the stall was negotiating with the stall owner when she heard the stall owner say, "I will only exchange this blood brew grapevine for 3 items. The first is a heaven fay that is about the same grade as the blood brew grapevine, the second is a bronze epic fay, and the third is a strategic resource reserve. The 3 broiling fire worker ants you took out might be bronze epic, but this kind of fire type fay is useless in Indigo Azure City. If you sell them in other cities, the exclusive skills of these 3 broiling fire worker ants won't be considered outstanding, so don't be unconvinced, young lady. Even if you take out 7 of these broiling fire worker ants, I will hesitate to trade with you, let alone you only took out 3. The stall owner was obviously a little impatient as he spoke. The short-haired woman hesitated for a moment before taking out 3 more source-type items. In a sense, source-type items are also considered strategic reserves. I will add these 3 source-type items to exchange for your blood brew grapevine. The stall owner waved his hand. 3 source-type items are at most equal to 1.5 bronze epic broiling fire worker ant. Apart from these 3 bronze epic broiling fire worker ants, take out another 8 source-type items, and I will trade with you. The short-haired woman said with a somewhat ugly expression. I don't have 8 source-type items on hand, only 6. Before the woman could finish speaking, the stall owner rudely interrupted her. I can't be bothered to bargain. The price I'm giving you is already the most fair. If it wasn't for the fact that I really don't want to raise a second bunch of blood brew grapes after raising 1 bunch, I wouldn't trade with you if you took out source-type items. When the man beside the short-haired woman heard the old man's impatient tone, he was obviously a little unhappy. He said to the short-haired woman beside him, Shan Liang, I'll lend you 2 source-type items. How about you exchange this blood brew grapevine first? The short-haired woman named Shan Liang's face darkened as she said to the young man beside her, whose hair was dyed purple. Wei Debao, I said I'm a green tea and don't like you. You stopped pestering me, but why are you always thinking about giving me a loan? Even if I, Shan Liang, starve to death, I won't let you. Wei Debao, give me a single cent. Wei Debao, whose hair was dyed purple, immediately felt a little wronged. Shan Liang, do you have a conscience? I know you're a green tea, but I'm still willing to give you a loan. Isn't that enough to show how much I love you? Shan Liang felt a surge of anger in her stomach. She let out a long burp and said angrily, Shan Liang, do you have a conscience? Consider it my life's misfortune to be in the same class as you, Wei Debao. You better leave your loan for ghosts to use. Do you think you're the heaven and earth bank? The interest is so huge. Lin Yuan looked at the man and woman in front of him, and for some reason, his mind immediately thought of Xin Ying and Zhong Xiaobai. At the same time, he could feel the mother of Bloodbath's extreme desire for the blood brew grapevine. This was because the mother of Bloodbath had been in a frenzied state ever since it saw the blood brew grapevine. The blood brew grapevine might not be comparable to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and twin red pagoda in his spirit lock spatial zone. However, it was comparable to the cinnabar sweet Osmanthus haworthia. Furthermore, the blood brew grapevine and cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia both produced fruits. However, the cinnabar Osmanthus haworthia's fruit function was to enhance spiritual energy. The blood brew grapes produced by the blood brew grapevine could increase the vitality of the target that consumed it. It would also allow the target's blood cells to be abnormally active for a short period of time and produce a large amount of blood. Fourthly, your little fairy is my gamma. End of this chapter. Chapter 442. The blood brew grapevine might not be considered very precious among the heaven and earth fays, but it was a rare heaven and earth fay. However, the blood brew grapevine was undoubtedly the most useful to the mother of Bloodbath. He used Morbius True Data to take a look at the blood brew grapevine. Fay name, blood brew grapevine, spirit species, grape family bilobed genus, Fay grade, platinum, 4/10, Fay type, blood, Fay quality. Epic. Not only was the blood brew grapevine at platinum, but its quality was also at epic. Lin Yuan nodded with satisfaction. It could be said that this blood brew grapevine was already a mature heaven and earth fay. After buying this blood brew grapevine, as long as the blood brew grapevine was supplied with a large amount of blood, the blood brew grapevine would not be affected. The blood brew grapevine could grow blood brew grapes. He didn't need to spend any more time and effort to nurture it. Lin Yuan had already heard the resource requirements of this stall owner. As for the 3 heaven and earth phase in the spirit lock spatial zone, he naturally would not exchange them. The Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in Lin Yuan's hands could be considered a strategic resource reserve that this stall owner wanted to exchange for. However, he planned to use strategic resources like the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls only when he had no other choice. After all, he was not sure if he would encounter spiritual ingredients and phase that the mother of bloodbath or he needed more in this indigo azure sea market. At that moment, he thought of the 4 bronze epic wind chain sparrows and 1 bronze epic wind net sparrow that he had enhanced. He took 2 steps forward and summoned 4 bronze epic wind chain sparrows and 1 bronze epic wind net sparrow. He held the 5 little guys in his palm and asked the stall owner, "Boss, I will use these 5 bronze epic phase to exchange for your blood brew grapevine. Are you satisfied?" When the elder in front of the stall saw the 5 palm-sized birds that Lin Yuan had summoned, his eyes narrowed slightly. Lin Yuan could tell that the exclusive skills of the 3 broiling fire worker ants were not good through just a glance from the old man in front of the stall. He knew that this elder should also be a creation master. The old man squinted his eyes and was probably sizing up the exclusive skills of the 4 bronze epic wind chain sparrows and 1 bronze epic wind net sparrow. When he enhanced bronze epic phase, he had always developed a better habit. When the Fae evolved to elite grade, it would definitely be upgraded to epic. This was so that he could choose one of the 3 exclusive skills when he advanced to bronze grade. Thus, be it the 4 wind chain sparrows or the wind net sparrow, their exclusive skills were rather outstanding. They were all exclusive skills that could enhance the combat ability of the wind chain sparrow and wind net sparrow. Lin Yuan showed extreme sincerity in this exchange and did not want to bargain with the old man in front of the stall. As the mother of bloodbath valued the blood brew grapevine very much, Lin Yuan was afraid of any other mishaps. After all, there were 2 other people over there. One was a woman who said she was a green tea, and the other was a purple-haired man who loved to lend money. They were both eyeing the blood brew grapevine covetously. After sizing up the 5 little fellows that Lin Yuan had summoned, the old man made the decision and said in a carefree manner, "All right. The blood brew grapevine is yours." After the old man said that, Lin Yuan revealed a smile. After the elder said that, Lin Yuan revealed a smile on his face. After enhancing the 5 little fellows, Lin Yuan revealed a smile. Lin Yuan was silently praising himself for being quick-witted. After enhancing the 5 little fellows, Lin Yuan had spent nearly 2 hours educating them not to use the sound of the wind to simulate a quarrel that was born in the womb. Otherwise, with these 5 little fellows together without anyone to control them, they would be able to set up a huge stage. What if the stall owner did not exchange for these 5 little fellows? After Lin Yuan completed the transaction, the short-haired woman called Shan Liang felt a little disappointed. She could not help but gently bite her lips, and it was obvious that she was unhappy. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard the purple-haired youth let out a strange cry. However, the purple-haired youth's cry was not directed at himself, but at the short-haired woman, Shan Liang, who looked a little disappointed. "Shan Liang, I didn't believe you when you said you were a green tea. But now, I believe you. Based on your current reaction and expression, are you trying to tempt me to make a move and snatch the blood brew grapevine from that masked young man?" Upon hearing the purple-haired youth's words, Lin Yuan could not help but blink his eyes behind the mask. What kind of astonishing brain circuit was this? Anyone who wanted to exchange for something but couldn't get it would feel a little disappointed. Shan Liang's expression turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Shan Liang grabbed the purple-haired young man's ear and roared, "Wei Debao, if it weren't for the fact that I beat you up so ruthlessly last time that your father called me to school and caused my credits to be deducted, I would have definitely beaten you until you crawl on the ground." Shan Liang twisted Wei Debao's ear for a good half a circle before letting go. Wei Debao's ears did not turn red, but his face turned red first as he murmured, "Shan Liang, this is what I like about you. You are like a catfish in the sauce, strong." Shan Liang immediately reached out and pinched Wei Debao's cheeks twice before she slapped Wei Debao's neck twice and said, "Shan Liang, this is what I like about you. I will strangle you to death with my soul-chasing palm and slap you to death with my fickle flower palm. Wei Dabao might be begging for mercy from Shan Liang's frenzied attacks, but his eyes were getting brighter. Lin Yuan could not differentiate between this young man and woman called Shan Liang and Wei Dabao. Were they flaunting their affection and displaying their strange dog food? Or were they really old foes? Just as Lin Yuan was about to leave, he heard a somewhat gloomy voice behind him. Kid, don't be in such a hurry to leave. I see that the mask on your face is not bad, and I am very interested. How about selling it to me? Lin Yuan did not turn around and did not look at the person who was speaking to him. However, his brows were slightly raised. Just from this sentence, Lin Yuan knew that the person who was speaking should be here to cause trouble. Lin Yuan's mouth pulled up into an arc. It's finally here. So slow. When Lin Yuan had gone to look for Listen to come to the Indigo Azure Sea market, he knew that someone would definitely find him in the market. However, he did not expect that this person would be so slow. Lin Yuan now wanted to see what kind of methods the Zheng family, one of the 3 prestigious families in Indigo Azure City, would take to deal with him. Chapter 5, Your Little Fairy is my reward plus more seeking recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, and full subscriptions. A shovel plus more hay. End of this chapter. Chapter 443. Lin Yuan knew that the Zheng family would look for him. To put it bluntly, the Zheng family was probing his identity. The Zheng family's assassination attempt on Listen had caused the Zheng family to lose 2 king-class experts. Of the 2 king-stage experts that were lost, one was a peak king-stage expert. The loss of a pinnacle king-class expert made the Zheng family afraid of Listen. Therefore, before the Zheng family figured out the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's backer, they wouldn't easily make a move on Listen. Even a peak king-stage expert was dead. If he made another move, he would have to be at the Emperor stage. In a battle between Emperor-class experts, law runes would affect the power of the laws. It wasn't as easy to control the situation as it was in a battle between king-class experts. If an Emperor-level expert were to act recklessly, then it would be very likely that things would get out of hand. During this sensitive period, he had appeared beside Listen. The Zheng family obviously wanted to confirm his relationship with Listen. Lin Yuan was also waiting for this opportunity to see if it was the Zheng family's main family or the Zheng family's 3rd lineage that had been targeting the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Before Lin Yuan could turn around to speak, he saw Wei Dabao, who had been crazily attacked by Shan Liang, whistle. Zheng Wenbo, weren't you beaten up by the brothers in your family? I heard that your father transferred you to the capital to study. Why aren't you staying in the capital? Why are you carrying your annoying shoehorn face? Shan Liang looked at Zheng Wenbo with disgust and disgust. Zheng Wenbo had already noticed Wei Dabao and Shan Liang, who was standing beside Wei Dabao. However, Zheng Wenbo ignored Wei Dabao's words as if he didn't hear them. However, Zheng Wenbo's originally sinister expression became even more gloomy. Seeing that Lin Yuan had turned around, Zheng Wenbo stretched out his hand and flicked at Lin Yuan in the air before saying again, "You're right. It's just a mask. If you give it to me, I might be able to befriend you." Seeing that Zheng Wenbo ignored him, Wei Dabao immediately said in a strange tone, "Yo, I haven't seen you for a few months and you're putting on airs. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that the 3rd lineage of the Zheng family had become the main family, and that you, Zheng Wenbo, had become the real young Master Zheng. Don't you think so?" Shan Liang. Shan Liang snorted when she heard Wei Dabao mention her. "Don't talk to me, or I'll hammer you to death." Wei Dabao pursed his lips, but a hint of vague expectation flashed in his eyes. Zheng Wenbo's originally gloomy face immediately turned gloomy after listening to Wei Dabao's words. However, Zheng Wenbo's eyes were still fixed on Lin Yuan, and he was thinking about the mission that his father had given him before leaving. Based on Zheng Wenbo's understanding of Wei Dabao was a collateral descendant of the Wei family, which was one of the 3 major families in Indigo Azure City. He was not an easy person to get along with. If he were to be entangled by Wei Dabao, this dogskin plaster, then the purpose of his trip might go wrong. When Lin Yuan saw Zheng Wenbo staring at him, he shook his head gently and said in a clear voice, "If it's a friend, then not. I don't casually teach friends. However, if you are interested in the mask on my face, I can sell it to you." After saying that, Lin Yuan circulated the spiritual power in his body. When Lin Yuan circulated the spiritual power in his body, the 5 kinds of fortune patterns embroidered on his moon-white robe, which were made of jade-textured white sandalwood and polished rice beads, lit up. It added a touch of indescribable grace and nobility to Lin Yuan's otherworldly temperament. At the same time, the mask on Lin Yuan's face that was made of completely jade-textured silk threads lit up with a soft jade halo under the noon sun. This halo didn't look dazzling at all, but it faintly emitted a 7-colored jade luster. However, this undazzling jade luster didn't let the noon sun's light overshadow the slightest bit. As spirit chi circulated on the mask made of completely jade-textured silk threads, the originally woven majestic city patterns became elegant and lively. It was like a majestic city hidden in the clouds, slowly revealing an inconspicuous shadow in the side of the clouds. The moment Lin Yuan's mask lit up, everyone's eyes were attracted by this 7-colored completely jade-textured luster. Wei Debao looked at Lin Yuan's mask with some surprise and thought, F***ck. Then, he looked at Zheng Wenbo with a playful gaze. Lin Yuan's spirit qi only circulated for a moment before it stopped. Lin Yuan said as he looked at the sinister-looking youth in front of him. "Are you still buying?" Zheng Wenbo did not know how to answer Lin Yuan's question. This was the indigo azure sea market. If he wanted to buy it, he would need to exchange it with something of equal value. If Zheng Wenbo had to take out the resources in his small treasury to exchange for some precious spiritual ingredients or phase, Zheng Wenbo would be willing. However, buying such a mask made of jade-textured wood thread was equivalent to buying a luxury item with no practical significance. And from the jade-like luster that had just lit up on the mask was completely jade-textured, and the wood threads could even reach 5 times the weight of the same volume of wood. It had reached the level of peerless jade-textured wood. Furthermore, only a Class 5 spirit craftsman with a fantasy breed wood weaving house centipede could turn the jade-like wood into thread and weave it. He didn't plan to trade in the indigo azure sea market, so he didn't bring many resources with him. Now that he had found trouble, he was forced to stay on a spiral staircase in midair, making it difficult for him to go up and down. However, Zheng Wenbo didn't understand why the completely jade-textured thread that was made into the mask would emit a colorful jade-like luster. At that moment, Zheng Wenbo heard the masked youth say, "The value of my mask is not easy to estimate. It's not easy to estimate the value of my mask. This thread made of completely jade-textured wood is mixed with dozens of types of completely jade-textured wood. If you really like it, then show me your sincerity." Lin Yuan was not a high-profile person. He was doing this to convey his foundation to the Zheng family's 3rd lineage. He wanted to tell them that he was not to be trifled with. At the same time, he wanted to find out the Zheng family's 3rd lineage's true attitude toward the listening heron chamber of commerce's shallow nearshore sea. Seeing that Zheng Wenbo was in a difficult situation, Wei Debao coughed lightly and stroked his purple-dyed short hair as he said in a very loyal manner. He said with a sense of loyalty, "Zheng Wenbo, I know you just don't have money. Stop pretending. But don't be afraid even if you don't have money. Who asked you to meet me? After all, we have been classmates for 2 years. I can give you a loan." Zheng Wenbo's originally gloomy expression cracked as he said, "Wei Debao, can your mouth not be like the crotch of an old lady's cotton pant?" Those who like to discuss the plot are welcome to join the Book Friends group in the introduction. Button wanted to do a survey. Everyone felt that Lin Yuan should keep a low profile. You should properly show off and slap his face. He should have been more pretentious and used his own resources and identity to fight 3. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation vote. The button for the new month will work hard. End of chapter. Chapter 444. When Wei Debao heard Zheng Wenbo scolding him, his face faintly revealed an excited expression. But then, Wei Debao found that Shan Liang had already left. Wei Debao ignored Zheng Wenbo, whose expression had already cracked. He trotted forward, coquettishly stroked his pearl-like purple hair, and chased after Shan Liang. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath's strange and pleasant voice sounded in Lin Yuan's mind. "Lin Yuan, the old man behind that youth has contracted a myth-breed fey, and there is more than one. Lin Yuan turned his gaze to the old man standing behind the sinister youth. The old man's back was straight, and his body had a chilly aura. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed that this old man should be the emperor-class expert of the Zheng family's third lineage. From this old man's standing position, his identity could be seen. He was obviously not from the Zheng family's main family. If this old man was from the Zheng family's main family, he would not be standing behind the Zheng family's third lineage's young master. Since the Zheng family's third lineage had found him, perhaps someone had also found Liu Jie or Listen. However, Lin Yuan was not worried about Lisan's and Liu Jie's safety. With endless summer secretly watching over them, there should be no one in this indigo azure sea market that could make Listen and Liu Jie suffer. However, this old man's appearance was equivalent to saying that the Zheng family's third lineage was willing to send an emperor-class expert for the shallow nearshore sea controlled by the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. This imperceptibly showed the Zheng family's third lineage's attitude. Lin Yuan could not help but be more curious about why the Zheng family's third lineage was so keen on the shallow nearshore sea. Lin Yuan quietly looked at the Zheng family's third lineage's young master Zheng with some playfulness in his eyes. From the purple-haired youth's words, this sinister youth in front of him should be the person supporting the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce in the royal capital. The pinnacle king-class expert that Endless Summer had killed must have been sent by this sinister youth in front of him. Under Lin Yuan's gaze, Zheng Wenbo's expression became more and more unsightly. This is simply 2F** king shameful. He had originally wanted to use this method to test the background of this masked young man by finding fault with him. However, of all the methods he could have used, he had to mention this mask. Wei Debao also found out about this matter. If Wei Debao were to find out, he was afraid that no one in his circle would not know about it. This was tantamount to his own social death. Just as Zheng Wenbo was about to speak, he heard the youth wearing the expensive mask speak. "Since you're shy, I won't force you. If you want to buy anything in the Indigo Azure Sea market, it's best to measure your own abilities to avoid embarrassment. Of course, it's the same for other things outside the Indigo Azure Sea market." After speaking, Lin Yuan stored the blood brew grapevine into the diamond amber button-shaped face storage box and turned to leave. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Zheng Wenbo's eyes, which were getting increasingly gloomy, suddenly focused. Zheng Wenbo sensed an attitude from this sentence. His attitude made it seem as if he didn't put him in his eyes at all. At the same time, there was a hint of warning in it. Zheng Wenbo might be from the Zheng family's third lineage, but he was still the Zheng family's young master. He would be addressed respectfully as young Master Zheng wherever he went. After being agitated by Lin Yuan's attitude, Zheng Wenbo's anger surged. At that moment, an elder with a straight back and a cedar aura looked in the direction that Lin Yuan had left. Then he put his hand on Zheng Wenbo's shoulder and said, "What else is there to be unhappy about?" Zheng Wenbo took a deep breath. Although his anger was no longer shown on his face, his eyes were like a vulture staring at rotten meat. Zheng Wenbo took a deep breath. Although his anger no longer showed on his face, his eyes were like a vulture staring at rotten meat. The elder patted Zheng Wenbo's shoulder and said, "Grandpa Jiao, did you sense an expert's aura around him?" The elder used his hand to pat Zheng Wenbo's shoulder and said, "I didn't sense any powerful aura. Unless the other party's strength is much higher than mine and he intentionally concealed his aura. Let's go, Wenbo. Report back to Master and see what he has to do next." Zheng Wenbo grinned sinisterly. "Without the protection of an expert, you still dare to speak so arrogantly? Based on my understanding of father, I might have to trouble Grandpa Jiao to make a trip tonight." The elder with a straight back and a cedar aura smiled and said, "It's no trouble at all. It's no trouble at all. The cold snow pine should be breaking through tonight." After Zheng Wenbo and the old man, who had a straight back and had a cedar-like temperament, walked away. Not far away, a young man sitting in a wheelchair next to a stall had a devilish smile on his face that seemed to widen. Behind the crippled youth, a man with 3 scars on his face said softly, "Third young master, we've been out long enough. Let's go back." The skinny crippled youth didn't respond to the man with 3 scars on his face. The skinny crippled youth didn't respond to the man with 3 scars on his face. He seemed to be very interested as he spoke. I heard that second brother is standing on the third lineage side. Second brother is really good at making trouble, huh? Unlike me, I can't even walk when I want to. Hearing the third young master's question, the man with 3 scars on his face immediately broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly lowered his head and didn't dare to reply. He even tried to slow down his breathing. The skinny youth in the wheelchair continued to speak. I can't even walk, but second brother is so good at making trouble. Haha. What a good second brother. The man with 3 scars on his face didn't know why, but when he heard the third young master say good second brother, he felt a bone-chilling chill rise from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, the smile on the skinny youth's face suddenly disappeared. I have to ask second brother to help me get my share out as well. As he spoke, a trace of viciousness and cruelty flashed in the skinny youth's eyes. He then extended his 6-fingered palm and looked at it gently. You said that when you released your aura against that person, your blood flowed in reverse and your mind was in chaos. I don't know if such an iron plate is enough. Will it be enough for second brother to break his legs when he's tormenting him? Suddenly, a sea breeze blew into the indigo azure sea market. As the sea breeze blew, the skinny youth in the wheelchair suddenly started coughing. While coughing, the viciousness in his eyes became as gentle as jade. The wind is blowing. Push me to Grandpa's place. I haven't played chess with Grandpa for a long time. The man with 3 scars on his face lowered his head, and the fine sweat on his nose gathered into water droplets that dripped onto the ground, creating a small splash. Upon hearing the third young master's instructions, he hurriedly responded. Yes, third young master. Just as Lin Yuan was about to stroll around the indigo azure sea market, he suddenly saw Liu Jie and Listen running toward him. Their faces also had a hurried expression. Second night. Everyone liked nurturing, but there was still a big conflict. Sob sob sob. End of this chapter. Chapter 445. When Lin Yuan saw Liu Jie and Listen running toward him, he hurriedly greeted them. Could it be that the Zheng family's third lineage really went to find trouble with Liu Jie and Listen? Just as Lin Yuan was about to ask, he heard Liu Jie say hurriedly, "That's right. Lin Yuan, quickly follow us. There is a mountain-containing embryo over there that your Fae needs." When Lin Yuan heard the words mountain-containing embryo, his pupils suddenly constricted. Then, his eyes were filled with joy. He now had a total of 3 fantasy breed Faes: the Source Sand, the Jasmine Lily, Red Thorn, and Chimey. He no longer needed to worry about Chimey's quality improvement after metamorphosing into a fantasy breed Fae. With the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree, as long as he could take out enough strange flames, he would be able to use it. In that case, it was not impossible to raise Chimey's quality to Fantasy V. Lin Yuan didn't need to worry about Red Thorn. As long as Red Thorn continued to eat like this, it would sooner or later rise from Fantasy I. However, after the Jasmine Lily and Source Sand became fantasy breeds, Lin Yuan did nothing to improve their quality. Lin Yuan had been stuck at C rank as a spirit chi professional. It would be utterly inadequate to rely on a C rank spirit chi professional's spiritual power to enhance a fantasy breed phase quality. It was not that he had not thought of a way, but these treasures that could enhance a fantasy breed phase quality were simply too rare. Even if Lin Yuan searched for it, he could not find it. The mountain-containing embryo that Liu Jie mentioned was a treasure that could strengthen Earth-type fantasy breed phase and Source-type lifeforms. It was considered a precious strategic class resource. Although the Source Sand was a sand element, the sand element was also a variant of the Earth element. In essence, it was a homologous element. Of course, strategic class resources like the mountain-containing embryo were not as simple as improving the quality of Earth-type fantasy breed phase and Source-type items. However, in his heart, this mountain-containing embryo's greatest use was to raise the Source Sand's quality from Fantasy I. Lin Yuan followed Liu Jie and Listen and quickly walked toward the stall where the mountain-containing embryo had appeared. Before he arrived in front of the stall, Lin Yuan noticed that many people were surrounding it. They surrounded the stall so tightly that not even a drop of water could pass through. Upon seeing this situation, Lin Yuan was a little anxious. Lin Yuan saw that most of the people on the periphery were watching the show, so he pushed through the crowd and squeezed in with Liu Jie and listened. Once inside, Lin Yuan got out of the crowd of onlookers and went to the trading spot next to the stall. At that moment, Lin Yuan realized that there was already an old man holding a telescopic lens under his eyelids, carefully looking at an earth-yellow spherical object that was half the size of a fist. This earthen yellow ball looked very unremarkable. It looked like a potato, and it was slowly bouncing in the old man's hand. It was like a living embryo. The stall owner was a round fatty. When he saw Lin Yuan, Liu Jie, and Listen emerge from the crowd and come to the trading area in front of the stall, he reminded them. If you plan to trade, you can check the 3 items on my stall. I only trade strategic class treasures here. Phase, spiritual ingredients, and source type items are all fine. But listen up, I only want strategic level weapons. When Lin Yuan heard the boss's reminder, he immediately replied, yes. I heard that boss has a mountain-containing embryo here. It's something I urgently need, so I came over to take a look. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the fat stall owner made an inviting gesture and said with a smile, I heard that you have a mountain-containing embryo here. Then you can wait for Master Jing Liu to finish checking this mountain-containing embryo before you check it. Although the other 2 items on the stall are not as precious as the mountain-containing embryo, they're also not bad. You can check them yourself. While speaking, the fat stall owner's eyes sized up Lin Yuan's body. His eyes deliberately stayed on the mask on Lin Yuan's face for a few seconds before shifting his gaze away. Lin Yuan lowered his head and glanced at the other 2 items on the stall, not paying much attention to them. However, Lin Yuan saw that the old man, whom the stall owner called Master Jing Liu, had not finished checking the mountain-containing embryo for a long time. Lin Yuan simply used Morbius True Data to scan the 3 items on the stall. With this glance, Lin Yuan's gaze was attracted by the items on the stall. However, what attracted Lin Yuan's gaze was not the mountain-containing embryo that could transform the source sand into a fantasy breed and improve its quality again. It was the source-type item in the middle that looked like a small cactus. The cactus-like source-type item was only the size of a thumb and did not look conspicuous at all. However, Lin Yuan did not expect that this inconspicuous cactus-shaped source-type item was actually a fairy source-type lifeform that was as rare as elemental source-type lifeforms. Lin Yuan was also someone who had seen the world. If it was an ordinary fairy source-type lifeform, he would not be attracted to it. Liu Jie's contracted insect queen was a fairy source-type lifeform. Although Lin Yuan had only seen the insect queen's true body once when it had entered combat mode, he had never seen it before. However, Lin Yuan already had a sufficient understanding of fairy source-type lifeforms in theory. The reason why this fairy source-type lifeform attracted Lin Yuan's gaze was that it was too suitable for Chu Ci. It was simply a source-type lifeform tailor-made for Lin Yuan's Iron Bucket Sister Nurturing Plan 3.0. With this fairy source-type lifeform, Iron Bucket Sister Nurturing Plan 3.0 could also officially start. As for the contract conditions, this fairy source-type lifeform might have harsh conditions for others, but it was a piece of cake for Lin Yuan. When the boss saw that Lin Yuan had been staring at the cactus-shaped source-type lifeform in his stall, he ignored Lin Yuan and went to introduce it. He just sat there, unperturbed. It was as if he had good stuff and was not worried about not selling it. Since Lin Yuan had found such a suitable source-type lifeform for the first time, he naturally would not let it go. He said to the satisfied fat boss, "Boss, quote a price for this thing in the middle." Upon hearing that, the fat boss patted his big belly and said, "I refuse to bargain. Since you want to trade, you should be able to see what this thing in the middle is, so you should also know the approximate price." After saying that, the fat boss chuckled and smiled unusually amiably. However, the words that came out of his mouth made Lin Yuan choke. "You can only quote a price once. If you're satisfied, I'll trade. If you're not satisfied, then you're not fated with this thing." Previously, in his purchase with no loss store, Lin Yuan had been acting like a big boss, be it during ordinary transactions or when he posted information about trades. Now, Lin Yuan did not expect to be treated like a big boss by someone else. First chapter. I'm going to write a big event soon. Perhaps it was because I was tired from typing for almost half a day in the hospital these 2 days, and my brain was a little muddy. Today, I used my cell phone to revise this chapter for the whole night and rewrote it twice. Sob, sob, sob. End of this chapter. Chapter 446. Lin Yuan finally understood why most of the people in front of this fat boss's stall were just watching the show and not going forward to trade. He wanted to make a deal with this fat boss, but his first offer wasn't enough. He didn't even have the chance to continue talking. Boss, your fairy source-type lifeform's contract conditions are a little too difficult. If you can't get a Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Master to help, even if this source-type lifeform can be contracted, it will just be a defective product. When the fat boss heard Lin Yuan's words, he rolled his eyes. If it weren't for the contract conditions, I wouldn't have taken out this fairy source-type lifeform to trade. But even if you can't find a Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Master, find a Class 4 Creation Master and spend some effort to successfully form a contract with this fairy source-type lifeform. Liu Jie and Listen, who were standing beside Lin Yuan, were confused. He did not understand what kind of riddle Lin Yuan was playing with this stall owner. When Lin Yuan heard the fat boss's words, he shook his head, not agreeing with the fat boss's statement. Under true data, the Burning Sunflower's contract conditions were very special. The fairy source-type lifeform, the Burning Sunflower, couldn't be directly contracted by Spirit Chi professionals. The Spirit Chi professionals had to slowly raise the Burning Sunflower like a normal fae. The Burning Sunflower would only reach its complete state when it reached Bronze Legend quality. However, when the Burning Sunflower was nurtured to Bronze Epic, Spirit Chi professionals would be able to contract it. However, choosing to contract the Burning Sunflower at Bronze Epic quality was an extremely wasteful way to waste the Burning Sunflower's potential. At Bronze Epic quality, if the contractor chose to contract the Burning Sunflower, then after the contract, the Burning Sunflower, which was originally in the shape of a dark green cactus, would bloom into a flame-like flower. Then, a Burning Sunflower flower spirit was born from the flower. The Burning Sunflower that gave birth to the Burning Sunflower spirit would crystallize and become a place for the Burning Sunflower spirit to reside in. At the same time, the Burning Sunflower flower spirit that was born was normal level 1, normal quality. However, if it was at Bronze Legend, the Burning Sunflower would grow to its complete state, and the Spirit Chi professional would form a contract with it. Then, the Burning Sunflower would grow 2 flame-like flowers, and the 2 flame-like flowers would give birth to 2 identical Burning Sunflower flower spirits, just like twins. These 2 identical Burning Sunflower flower spirits were also normal level 1, normal quality. It was just that these 2 identical Burning Sunflower flower spirits would share levels and willpower runes, and could cast skills together. It could be said that when a contestant chose to contract a Burning Sunflower at Bronze Legend quality, there was a world of difference between the Burning Sunflower and Bronze Epic quality. In his opinion, no matter how suitable this fairy source-type lifeform, the Burning Sunflower, was for Chu Ci, if he could not let it reach its complete state before letting Chu Ci contract it. Then he would also give up decisively. Rather than compromise like this, it was better to choose a replacement who could fully display his strength. After Lin Yuan weighed the Burning Sunflower's value in his heart, he prepared to make a bid. The old man who had been squatting to check the mountain-containing embryo stood up and praised. This mountain-containing embryo is indeed something that can only be produced in Class 4 underground dimensional rifts. I will offer 2 young elemental shellfish for this mountain-containing embryo. The price of 2 young elemental shellfish is slightly higher than your mountain-containing embryo. Hearing that, the fat boss's face lit up. At the same time, Lin Yuan secretly cursed in his heart. He did not expect that the old man, who had been squatting on the ground to check the mountain-containing embryo, would actually make a bid after standing up and decide to exchange for it. Furthermore, the price he offered was clearly slightly higher than the price of the mountain-containing embryo itself. Under such circumstances, if Lin Yuan did not quickly speak up, this mountain-containing embryo would probably not be fated with him. Boss, do you accept elemental pearls here? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the fat boss immediately turned to look at Lin Yuan and asked in surprise. You want to use elemental pearls to exchange for this fairy source-type lifeform? The value of a single elemental pearl was far less than a fairy source-type lifeform. Compared to source-type lifeforms, the status of elemental pearls was obviously higher among foundational resources. After all, a single source-type lifeform had a lot of limitations and was only valuable to a small number of people. However, most fays in the world had nature attributes. Apart from a few spiritual type, blood type, and poison type fays, most fays that used elemental pearls at the point of evolution were very likely to enhance their nature attributes and even help them evolve. It could be said that the elemental pearl's versatility and functionality were not comparable to a single source-type lifeform with a lot of limitations. The old man, whom the fat boss addressed as Master Jing Liu, frowned slightly due to being interrupted, but he did not say anything. However, Lin Yuan's words made Master Jing Liu's brows furrow into a deep frown. "I'm not using elemental pearls to exchange for this fairy source-type lifeform." When Lin Yuan spoke, he paused for a moment, and during this pause, the fat boss did not react. "If you don't want to use elemental pearls to exchange for this fairy source-type lifeform, why are you asking me if I accept elemental pearls?" However, when the fat boss heard Lin Yuan's words, he was in a bit of a dilemma. "I want to use Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls to exchange for your mountain-containing embryo." Lin Yuan's words made the surrounding onlookers exclaim out loud. The elemental pearls produced by the elemental shellfish required rich, high-purity spirit qi. Class 3 creation masters and above could help the elemental shellfish produce elemental pearls by concocting spirit fluids to stimulate spirit qi. However, the speed at which Class 3 creation masters made the elemental shellfish produce elemental pearls was simply too slow. Only Class 3 creation masters and above could normally stimulate elemental pearls. Taking out elemental pearls was not considered a great ability, but it was different to take out Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. This was the privilege of Class 4 creation masters and above. Moreover, a mountain-containing embryo would definitely require a lot of Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls to exchange for it. This could indirectly show that this masked youth must have powerful creation master resources behind him. The fat boss took a look at Master Jing Liu and noticed that his brows were furrowed into a deep frown. He silently cursed in his heart. This Master Jing Liu was an advanced Class 4 creation master. If he let Master Jing Liu have a bad impression of him, it would not be worth it. However, compared to the elemental shellfish, the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls were more attractive to the fat boss. Even if the fat boss held the elemental shellfish in his hands, it could only stimulate the production of elemental pearls at most. The prerequisite of stimulating the production of elemental pearls was the investment of creation master resources. Second chapter. End of this chapter. Chapter 447. Even if these creation master resources were not used to nurture the elemental pearls and enhance the phase quality, the returns would not be inferior to the value of using the elemental shellfish to nurture the elemental pearls. Therefore, the fat boss was still more inclined to exchange for the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls with Lin Yuan. However, this would inevitably offend Master Jing Liu. Master Jing Liu's temper was not good, and he was famous for distinguishing between love and hate. Those who were recognized by Grandmaster Jing Liu would treat them like family. However, those who were hated by Master Jing Liu would never be soft-hearted when taking revenge. The fat boss's eyes turned, and he had a plan. If he traded this mountain-containing embryo to this masked youth in exchange for the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, it might cause Master Jing Liu to have a bad opinion of him. However, if he could let Master Jing Liu have the least opinion of him and transfer his hatred to this masked youth, it would be worth it to exchange for the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. This masked youth was willing to exchange the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls for the mountain-containing embryo. It meant that the mountain-containing embryo was very important to this masked youth. The fat boss didn't answer Lin Yuan's question directly. Instead, he looked at Lin Yuan and blinked twice at him. When Lin Yuan saw the fat boss blink at him, he understood what he meant. When Master Jing Liu stood up, Lin Yuan saw the Class 4 Creation Master crest hanging on his chest. Among the 4 stars, the second star had risen high, which meant that Master Jing Liu was an advanced Class 4 Creation Master. However, Even if Master Jing Liu was an advanced Class 4 creation master, Lin Yuan would not shrink back from this mountain-containing embryo that he had found with great difficulty. Instead, he made up his mind to exchange for the mountain-containing embryo. At the same time, Lin Yuan could not help but put his thoughts on the 2 infant elemental shellfish in Master Jing Liu's hands. Lin Yuan thought to himself, if I can get these 2 infant elemental shellfish in Master Jing Liu's hands, that would be after I induce these 2 infant elemental shellfish to mutate in the spirit lock spatial zone. These 2 mutated elemental shellfish could produce a large number of Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. By then, the resources that I could use would increase exponentially. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and said to the fat boss, yes, sir. I'm willing to exchange 200 Heavenly Maiden-level elemental pearls produced by the scorching elemental shellfish for this mountain-containing embryo. The fat boss's face was immediately filled with surprise when he heard this. But then the fat boss quickly hid the joyful expression on his face and secretly looked at Master Jing Liu. Noticing that Master Jing Liu wasn't looking at him, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. Master Jing Liu looked at Lin Yuan for a long time and sighed. Little friend, give me this mountain-containing embryo, and I will help you raise that source-type lifeform, the burning sunflower, to bronze epic after the transaction. How about it? Master Jing Liu's words caused a commotion among the onlookers. F***CK. What was going on? Was this a deal between the big shots? Just bidding for a chance to raise a source-type lifeform's quality to bronze epic. What kind of godly operation is this? As expected of an advanced Class 4 creation master. His first move is already a chance to upgrade the source-type lifeform to bronze epic. He didn't even take out the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl. What if there isn't one? As soon as the woman's voice rang out, everyone looked at her as if they were looking at an idiot. Would anyone in the world dare to lie and swindle a Class 4 creation master in front of a Class 4 creation master? Upon hearing Master Jing Liu's words, Lin Yuan shook his head. Master Jing Liu, the Mount Rongshan embryo is related to the improvement of my strength. With Grandmaster's status, you naturally know how rare the mountain-containing embryo is. Just like Grandmaster, since I have encountered it, I will naturally do my best to take it and not let it go. After saying that, Lin Yuan cupped his fists and bowed to Master Jing Liu to express his apology. Master Jing Liu sighed again when he heard that. He looked at Lin Yuan with a somewhat complicated gaze. Originally, Master Jing Liu was quite disgusted with this young man who suddenly interrupted the situation and snatched the mountain-containing embryo that he was about to obtain. But in this kind of bidding, it was just a competition of who could bring out better items. In Master Jing Liu's opinion, if it were up to him, even if the value of 2 infant elemental shellfish and 200 Heavenly Maiden-level elemental pearls were equivalent, he would still be able to make a profit. He would also not hesitate to choose 200 Heavenly Maiden-level elemental pearls instead of 2 infant elemental shellfish. Therefore, Master Jing Liu had offered to raise the source-type lifeform, the burning sunflower, to bronze epic to fight for it. After hearing that he was directly rejected, a surge of anger surged in Master Jing Liu's heart. However, this masked youth's attitude towards him was very polite and respectful. This made it hard for Master Jing Liu to vent the anger in his heart. It had to be said that Lin Yuan's neither servile nor overbearing attitude and polite attitude had indeed given Master Jing Liu a little favorable impression. However, this favorable impression and disgust counterbalanced each other, and there was more disgust instead. Therefore, Master Jing Liu still felt a little displeased when he looked at Lin Yuan. Forget it. I only want this mountain-containing embryo for the pure and massive earth element energy in it and the aura of the earth vein origin. Since I'm not fated with this mountain-containing embryo, I'll go back and induce the 2 infant elemental shellfish to mutate into thick earth elemental shellfish and cultivate the Heavenly Maiden-level elemental pearls myself. As for the aura of the earth vein's origin, this old man will think of a way. It's not that I have to accept the earth embryo. When Lin Yuan heard Master Jing Liu's words, he suddenly felt that Master Jing Liu was rather cute. At the same time, Lin Yuan found that Master Jing Liu seemed to be a hidden chatterbox, as he spoke a lot. The last part of his sentence sounded like he was borrowing a manga book from a classmate at school, but the classmate wouldn't lend it to him. He clearly wanted to read manga, but he said that he had something to read and that he didn't care about reading manga. What an aged tsundere. Lin Yuan was still thinking about the 2 infant elemental shellfish in Master Jing Liu's hand. Upon hearing Master Jing Liu say that he wanted to nurture Earth-type elemental pearls, Lin Yuan hurriedly replied, "Master Jing Liu, I still have some Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. I will also take out 200 of them. How about exchanging for the 2 infant elemental shellfish in Grandmaster's hands? Take it as a token of my apology." Master Jing Liu, who was still a little unhappy with Lin Yuan, was stunned. What was the meaning of this masked kid? He actually wants to trade with me? Tips and updates for Magic Jellyfish. Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes. End of chapter. Chapter 448. He had just snatched the mountain-containing embryo from his hands, and now he was eyeing the 2 infant elemental shellfish in his hands. He was simply too savage. However, although Master Jing Liu was somewhat resistant in his heart, his body was 100% willing. Even if he was an advanced Class 4 creation master and wanted to hasten the thick earth elemental shellfish to produce 200 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, he wouldn't be able to do so. However, it would take a lot of effort and a lot of time. Furthermore, the young man had said that he wanted to apologize to him. He would use 200 Heavenly Maiden-level pearls to exchange for his 2 infant elemental shellfish. It was simply too sincere. Master Jing Liu said directly, "This old man sees that you're not bad. Since that's the case, this old man agrees to the exchange and will still help you raise this source-type lifeform, Burning Sunflower, to Bronze Epic." Lin Yuan hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed. "Thank you for your kindness, Master. However, I won't trouble you with such a small matter. If Master needs more Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls in the future, you can look for me directly." After saying that, he flipped his hand. He took out a large brocade box from the amber button-shaped diamond fey storage box and handed it to Master Jing Liu. Master Jing Liu took it and opened it. He didn't even count it before closing the brocade box. The pearlescent light is restrained internally, and the light is restrained externally. The color pores are warm and translucent, and the earth element fills the color pores. The Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls you took out can be considered top tier. After saying that, Master Jing Liu took out his cell phone and took the initiative to ask Lin Yuan for his cell phone number. He then placed the 2 young elemental shellfish into a platinum fey storage box and handed it to Lin Yuan. He did not check the 2 young elemental shellfish in the platinum fey storage box. He placed the 2 platinum fey storage boxes that contained the young elemental shellfish into the amber button-shaped diamond fey storage box. Seeing this, Master Jing Liu laughed and said, "You're not bad, I like you." With that, he turned around and left the stall. At that moment, Lin Yuan realized that the onlookers, the fat stall owner, Listen, and Liu Jie were looking at him as if they were looking at a god. Lin Yuan was rather helpless and simply took out another brocade box. This brocade box was also filled with 200 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. Lin Yuan handed the brocade box to the fat boss. Then, Lin Yuan looked at the fairy source-type lifeform, the Burning Sunflower, and asked the fat boss, "Boss, I don't know what resources I can offer to exchange for this source-type lifeform." As Lin Yuan spoke, he stretched out his hand and touched the back of his head. After exchanging for 2 young elemental shellfish and the mountain-containing embryo, Lin Yuan realized that he had become a pauper. The Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls that he had collected in the Spirit Lock spatial zone were not absorbed by the twin red pagoda. Apart from giving Liu Jie and Listen 30 each, after spending another 400, he did not have any left. He had used these 400 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls to exchange for plenty of strategic class resources. However, even if he starved to death, he would never sell these strategic resources again. Lin Yuan realized that the more resources he controlled, the more severe his hoarding habits became. Now that the good stuff was in his hands, he wouldn't feel the pinch no matter how he or his companions used it. However, if he were to trade it, he felt that it was no different from cutting off his own flesh. The fat boss no longer had the same indifferent expression as before. He hurriedly took the brocade box that Lin Yuan handed over and carefully opened the lid. Then, he counted the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the brocade box one by one. After counting and confirming that there were no mistakes, the fat boss rubbed his fingertips as though he was still reminiscing the feeling of touching the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. The fat boss had a bright smile on his face, but the idea he had just made up in his mind made his flesh ache. Little brother, I'll give you this fairy source-type lifeform. I wonder if I can also exchange contact information with you. If I have good stuff in the future, I also want to exchange some Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls from you. Lin Yuan did not expect to encounter such a good thing. When did my cell phone number become so valuable? My contact information can actually be exchanged for a fairy source-type elemental lifeform. Lin Yuan now had 2 young elemental shellfish and could completely induce mutations in these 2 young elemental shellfish. He would let these 2 mutated elemental shellfish produce Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Then, he would use the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls as his own strategic resource reserve. In other people's eyes, Lin Yuan didn't make a profit and instead suffered a small loss. However, Lin Yuan felt that after nurturing these 2 young elemental shellfish and placing them in his Spirit Lock spatial zone for a few days, they would grow rapidly. That way, he would be able to earn back all the money he had spent. Lin Yuan planned to nurture the 2 young elemental shellfish into thick earth shellfish and store a portion of the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. A portion of it was used to feed the source sand. In fact, if Lin Yuan wanted to improve the fantasy breed source sand's quality, he did not have to use the mountain embryo mountain. There were many precious spiritual ingredients that could allow the source sand to evolve from fantasy eye to fantasy breed. However, the mountain-containing embryo was a strategic class treasure that had been formed after a Class 4 underground dimensional rift had devoured a mountain range. After countless years of underground evolution, it had become a strategic class treasure. The mountain-containing embryo contained the ability to transform mountains. This kind of evolving ability was compatible with the 2 willpower runes that the source sand had fused with. The source sand could slowly comprehend and absorb it. Lin Yuan wanted to use the mountain-containing embryo to improve the source sand's quality from fantasy eye to enhance the source sand's ability to transform. Although it would require a lot of resources, Lin Yuan felt that it was worth it to increase the source sand's strength. However, he felt that it was worth it to increase his phase strength. The fat boss's heartache from giving away a source-type lifeform had already disappeared. In the fat boss's opinion, this masked youth had taken out 400 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in front of his stall. In the fat boss's opinion, this masked youth had taken out 400 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in front of his stall. There was a saying that went, when a bowl of water is full, the part that spills out is called the foundation. The 400 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that this masked youth had casually taken out were actually the foundation. The 400 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that this masked youth had casually taken out were obviously the resources that could be used at will. It was obvious that this masked youth's background was the overflowing resources that could be used at will. It was a great benefit to have a relationship with such a person. Even if he could not obtain any substantial help, just having a stable channel to exchange for Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls was already a huge profit. First more, end of this chapter. Chapter 449. After the transaction was completed, Lin Yuan was in a good mood. He could finally start enhancing the source sand's quality. At the same time, Lin Yuan sensed Red Thorn, which was feasting on the Gold Water World dimensional lifeform's flesh in the leaf-shaped diamond face storage box. He could not bear to look at it. Lin Yuan suddenly began to reflect in his heart. Am I still a good father to Red Thorn if I let it eat such smelly things? Liu Jie and Listen communicated with their eyes. Liu Jie saw Listen winking at him and simply said, I've laid my cards on the table. I laid my cards on the table. I didn't get anything. After saying that, he took out the golden silk brocade pouch containing 30 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Upon hearing that, Listen also took out the golden silk brocade pouch containing 30 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Me too. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan asked. Are there no suitable resources to exchange? Liu Jie and Listen nodded and then shook their heads. Then, Listen took the lead to speak. Even if the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls are relatively precious strategic class resources, they can only be exchanged for resources of the same level. I don't think it's a good deal. Liu Jie also echoed. I feel the same way. Compared to those strategic resources of the same level, the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls are more convenient to circulate. It's better to keep the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in your hands. Upon hearing Liu Jie and Listen's words, Lin Yuan finally understood what the problem was. He had not taken the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls too seriously and used their advantage to exchange for resources of the same strategic value. This was because he knew how easy it was for him to obtain the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. As long as he lay in bed and slept, he could pick up a few in the Spirit Lock spatial zone the next day. However, Listen and Liu Jie looked at the value of the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls from a normal person's point of view. With such a comparison, Lin Yuan felt that he was really a spendthrift. However, immediately after, Lin Yuan found that the conversation between Listen and Liu Jie was somewhat magical. Both of them had an awkward expression on their faces. Liu Jie said in a low, muffled voice. In that case, the two of us didn't exchange for anything. It's a draw. Listen heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Liu Jie's words, but Liu Jie's words made him cough. Since we didn't complete it, it's counted as both of us losing. Listen looked dumbfounded at Liu Jie and asked, Brother Liu, why don't you think that both of us won? Since we didn't exchange for anything, it means we lost. Since we didn't get anything, it means that we've lost. If we lose, we'll be punished together. Listen asked, looking at Liu Jie suspiciously. Brother Liu, is it because you like to eat spicy food? So you want me, a person who loves to eat sour food, to eat spicy food with you? Jie, Liu said. Even if I love spicy food, I won't eat a platinum devil pepper. God, listen, Liu demon, listen, Yang, Liu, listen, said, listen, Liu, sand that, Su, time, listen, God. Lin Yuan God, time. Lin, thorn. Lin listen. Jie, listen. Since Big Brother Liu is so fair, we have to keep our promise about not drinking milk and drinking iced Coke after eating. However, the two of them must have made a bet again, and the bet was about the platinum devil pepper. He felt that Listen and Liu Jie were really warriors. Lin Yuan could eat spicy food, but he would sweat all over when he ate something too spicy, and his stomach would feel like it was on fire. Once he ate a platinum demon pepper, his stomach would probably explode like a volcano even if they each took half. And the worst thing would be the next morning, when he went to the toilet, his *SS would probably fly off. Lin Yuan still remembered that Liu Jie had eaten 30 cool sour lemons in a bet with Listen and had eaten millet porridge for several days. For Listen and Liu Jie's sake, Lin Yuan naturally had to persuade them. However, after some persuasion, he saw that Liu Jie and Listen were determined. Lin Yuan could only helplessly think of a good idea. Why don't I get you to juice the platinum demon pepper when we go back and mix it with honey to make lollipops for the two of you? This way, the sweetness can offset some of the spiciness. At that moment, Listen and Liu Jie looked at Lin Yuan and felt that he was a demon. If they swallowed half of the platinum demon pepper quickly, their mouths would be satisfied. If they made it into lollipops and held it for more than 10 minutes, their lips would probably swell bigger than their heads. They could only walk with their heads down and prevent their swollen lips from falling forward. At that moment, Liu Jie and Listen looked at each other and directly abandoned the fairness and integrity in their hearts as they spoke. They said, I think since it's a draw, it's a win-win situation. Yes, I think so too. Lin Yuan raised his brows and thought to himself. Do these two think that when used lollipops are not enough? Lin Yuan scratched his head and was a little puzzled. He felt that it was delicious when he ate it. Lin Yuan was now a pauper, so he naturally did not have the mood to continue shopping in the Indigo Azure Sea Market. Otherwise, if he saw good things but could not buy them, it would simply be looking for trouble. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and said, It's still early. It's still early. Why don't we go to the shallow coastal sea to take a look? Let's see what secrets are hidden in the shallow coastal sea that the third lineage of the Zheng family is so concerned about. Upon hearing that, Lisan's heart trembled. In this world, probably no one wanted to know more than Lisan what secrets the listening heron chamber of commerce's nearshore shallow sea had. Lisan had always wanted to know if the deaths of his loved ones had anything to do with the secret of the coastal sea. Upon sensing the change in Lisan's expression, Liu Jie patted his shoulder and spoke in a deep voice. Our Radiance 100 has just sent a notification that the active period of the dimensional rift has been researched by a few Class 5 scholars. It will be 1 or 2 days earlier than expected. Therefore, it's best to complete the investigation of this coastal sea within a day or 2. Otherwise, there might be unforeseen events during the active period of the dimensional rift. After listening to Liu Jie's information, Lin Yuan lamented that he had a Radiance 100 sequence member like Liu Jie by his side. It was really convenient to always know some news in advance. On the other hand, he was lamenting that he didn't have much time left. Under Lisan's guidance, Lin Yuan and Liu Jie arrived near the shallow coastal sea where the listening heron chamber of commerce was located. As soon as they arrived at the shallow coastal sea near the listening heron chamber of commerce, Lin Yuan's expression instantly became serious. As soon as he smelled the scent, Lin Yuan knew that the listening heron chamber of commerce's shallow coastal sea was really unusual. Second, more. Seeking recommendation votes and monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 450. This shallow nearshore sea actually had such a fishy smell. Lin Yuan was simply too familiar with this unique fishy smell. It was the smell of the water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh and blood rotting. At this time, the sea breeze on the coast was very strong. Any smell would be taken hundreds of meters away in an instant and then disappear without a trace in the blink of an eye. However, the sea breeze could not cover up the smell of the water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh and blood rotting on the shore. This meant that there were a large number of water world dimensional lifeforms rotting on the shore of this shallow nearshore sea. Just as Lin Yuan's expression became more and more serious, Liu Jie frowned and said, "Could it be that a water world dimensional rift has just opened on the shore? Could it be that a water world dimensional rift has just opened on the shore? Why are there so many water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh and blood rotting on the shore?" While speaking, Liu Jie looked at the calm seaside not far away, and his frown deepened. The sparkling waves on the surface of the sea rose. Obviously, there was no large-scale battle between phase and water world dimensional lifeforms in the sea at this time. Lisan pondered for a moment and said, "I've been here before I went to the royal capital, and nothing unusual happened." Lisan was also wondering how many water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh and blood were rotting together in such a wide space. Only then could they, who stood with their backs to the wind, smell such a pungent fishy smell. Lisan hurriedly took out 3 light cyan wax slices from his diamond face storage box and handed them to Lin Yuan and Liu Jie. "These are shards of the Mirage Aura coral. Put the shards in your hands and cover your nose. It can use the Mirage Aura emitted by these shards to cover up the water world dimensional lifeforms' rotten smell." At that moment, Lisan saw Lin Yuan raise his hand and say, "Smell it. The water world dimensional lifeforms' rotten smell is becoming fainter and fainter. Wait a little longer. If this smell can become fainter or disappear, we'll go up and take a look." Lin Yuan thought to himself. If the smell became fainter, it meant that a large number of water world dimensional lifeforms had just been slaughtered and then been swept to the shore by the current. The source sand stuck to the amber button-shaped diamond face storage box on Lin Yuan's cuff landed on the beach under his feet, turned into gravel, and drilled into the beach. Liu Jie noticed Lin Yuan's action and used his spiritual energy to summon the Insect Queen. After the Insect Queen was summoned, a small humanoid fairy sprang out of the throbbing purple flesh cocoon. It was the Insect Queen's main body. The fairy-type source-type lifeform, the Insect Queen, had exquisite wings that were a combination of moth wings and transparent fleece wings. After the Insect Queen flew out of the purple flesh cocoon, it immediately hugged Liu Jie's neck and rubbed its little face against Liu Jie's neck. Liu Jie held the petite Insect Queen in front of him with his palm and said, "Pian Pian, Pian Pian, Pian Pian, we have to prepare for battle. Go spread out the sea of insects according to the A formation. Under Liu Jie's instructions, insect queen Pian turned into a stream of light and entered the purple flesh cocoon. The purple flesh cocoon landed on the ground, and its body expanded to over 3 meters. There were many sac-like tubes that were unique to insect species phase. These sac-like pipes pulsated, and there seemed to be something flowing rapidly in the pipes. After transforming, the insect queen looked like an insect tribe's mother nest. The moment the insect queen transformed, the Bennett beetles that had been optimized by the cocoon of evolution evolved into flesh-mincing blade insects one after another. They were being mass-produced at an extremely fast speed from the mother nest that was 3 meters away. Then, the shield ladybugs with thick armor and the plasma caterpillars with bluish-purple spikes on their bodies swarmed out. After these shield ladybugs were produced, they consciously guarded behind them. Then, the 2 pieces of thick armor on its back split open, forming an impenetrable wall. Under Liu Jie's command, they advanced toward the coast step by step. The plasma caterpillars consciously followed behind the shield ladybugs, adjusting the plasma in their bodies, ready to eject at any time. Meanwhile, the massive number of flesh-mincing blade insects that covered half of the beach all scuttled into the sand. Lin Yuan manipulated the source sand and could feel that every flesh-mincing blade insect under the sand was in an attack posture that was ready to attack. They would launch a swift and violent attack at any time according to Liu Jie's command. Immediately afterward, the insect queen's mother nest seemed to be stuck and trembled violently. When the insect queen that had transformed into the insect tribe's hive stopped trembling violently, nearly 100 lightning-gathering moths and hurricane owlet moths formed a swarm and flew out of the hole in the insect queen's mother nest. The lightning-gathering moths were only half the size of a palm, but they had a purple antenna on their heads that was about the same length as their bodies. The hurricane owlet moths were more than twice the size of the lightning-gathering moths, and their cyan butterfly wings had fine black patterns. The black patterns seemed to be able to absorb the light that drifted between heaven and earth, making the hurricane owlet moths fly at night forever. The moment the lightning-gathering moths appeared, the plasma caterpillars seemed to have found their backbone, and a large amount of plasma accumulated in their bodies spurted out. These plasma were directly drawn over by the lightning-gathering moths. A large amount of plasma filled the lightning-gathering moths with bluish-purple electric arcs. As the electric arcs jumped, the lightning-gathering moth's originally faint purple body became a deep purple. As the electric arcs flickered, the dark purple wings faintly carried a layer of silver luster. This layer of silver luster was the unique characteristic of the lightning-gathering moths when the thunder energy in their bodies had reached saturation. In less than a minute, Liu Jie had the insect queen set up the battlefield. If the insect swarm was compared to a war machine, then each insect unit produced by the insect queen would be like a small part of this huge war machine. These small parts had their respective positions and responsibilities, making the war machine-like insect C operate with the fastest and most precise efficiency. Liu Jie, who was beside Lin Yuan, was the heart of this insect swarm and the only commander. After setting up the insect C, the insect queen's mother nest shrank into a purple flesh cocoon again. Liu Jie took out a gold protein cocoon chrysalis from the diamond fey storage box and fed it to the insect queen. He let the insect queen replenish the energy it had consumed to create the insect swarm. The insect queen flew up with the protein cocoon chrysalis that Liu Jie handed over and gently kissed Liu Jie's face. Then, it glanced at Lin Yuan and listened, as though it was afraid to see strangers, and burrowed into the purple flesh cocoon. It began to enjoy the gold protein cocoon chrysalis alone. Lin Yuan had experienced how shy Liu Jie's insect queen was when he had been in the mansion. Feeling the flesh-mincing blade insects lurking underground, Lin Yuan's mind suddenly gave birth to a strange idea. Tips and updates for Magic Jason. Looking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Buttons are still in the hospital. Tips.io will be returned slowly. Sob, sob, sob. End of this chapter. Chapter 451. Apart from energy, producing so many insect species phase required a lot of protein. How much protein was needed? Liu Jie could really afford it. At the same time, Lin Yuan's source sand was not idle. This was the shore. Although there were many reefs, Most of the sandy beach under their feet was sea sand. Therefore, it was very easy for the source sand to produce sand. However, Lin Yuan found that the sand on the shore was wet. After being soaked in seawater, the weight of the sand would increase. Therefore, it was far less convenient to control the wet sand as it was to control the dry sand. At that moment, Zhu Luo, whom Lin Yuan had previously notified, had also arrived. The shield ladybugs spawned by Liu Jie's insect queen had now gathered on the shore with their backs erected, forming a solid wall. Only a few shield ladybugs were still around for protection. When Zhu Luo saw the large group of insect species phase on the shore, especially the shield ladybugs, lightning-gathering moths, and plasma caterpillars, he immediately thought of a person. Not long ago, the heart of insect swarm Liu Jie, who had just returned to the Radiance 100 sequence and was ranked 30th. When Zhu Luo first met Liu Jie was also wearing a strange mask. Although Zhu Luo had seen Liu Jie's true appearance, a low-class king-class expert like Zhu Luo, who had been running around to upgrade phase all year round, rarely had time to stay on Star Web. At first, Zhu Luo only felt that Liu Jie looked familiar as if he had seen him somewhere. Zhu Luo only thought that Liu Jie might look familiar and did not think much about it. However, he did not expect Liu Jie to be the Radiance 100 sequence's 30th prodigy. Along the way, Zhu Luo was afraid that riding a flying fae to this shallow nearshore sea would be too eye-catching and be targeted by people with ulterior motives. Originally, the Guild Alliance branch that Zhu Luo had inquired about was near this shallow nearshore sea, so he jogged all the way over. Lin Yuan asked when he saw Zhu Luo arrive, "Has the lava iguana reached Diamond?" Upon hearing that, Zhu Luo's eyes were full of gratitude. "Young master, the lava iguana has now relied on the flawless dragon's mouth orchid flowers you gave and that tube of diamond dragon species Fey blood to awaken its dragon species bloodline and evolve into a lava dragon lizard. At the same time, with the bloodline awakening energy, it has successfully reached Diamond." Having said that, Zhu Luo summoned the evolved lava dragon lizard. The lava dragon lizard belonged to the giant iguana species and had evolved from Zhu Luo's original 6-meter-long lava iguana. At present, the lava dragon lizard's body was nearly 12 meters long. Although it wasn't considered a huge lizard fae among the giant lizard species fays, the lava dragon lizard's body was much larger than the lava dragon lizard. But it could be ranked in the middle. The lava dragon lizard had 2 heads. One head was of the earth element, while the other was of the fire element. However, when the energies of the 2 heads collided, the earth and fire attributes fused together, turning it into surging magma. The lava Japalura's spiritual intelligence was not low. It also knew that other than its contractor, Zhu Luo, it had received someone else's grace for it to be able to have its current transformation. Therefore, the lava dragon lizard lowered its 2 heads in front of Lin Yuan. Fays that had awakened the dragon species bloodline were usually arrogant, and it was rare to see a situation like the lava dragon lizard. Seeing this, Zhu Luo used his hands to stroke the lava dragon lizard's neck like a feather duster. He watched as his former partner, the iron bone iguana, mutated and evolved all the way into the current lava dragon lizard. Zhu Luo couldn't help but think of Freezing Cold, who had insulted him in the purchase with no loss store. Time had changed, and less than 10 days had passed. Zhu Luo could now say that his talent had completely surpassed Freezing Cold. 2 lizard species fays had awakened the dragon species bloodline. Among them, the dark snake dragon lizard had awakened the dragon species bloodline at bronze. As long as there was enough time to grow, the lava dragon lizard and the dark snake dragon lizard's grades would increase. Then, he would be able to go from the lowest position among king-class experts to the high-end combat power of king-class experts. Lin Yuan could completely understand Zhu Luo's joy. Lin Yuan was also someone who had climbed up from the dust, so he could still empathize with Zhu Luo's joy of metamorphosis. At that moment, the joy on Zhu Luo's face disappeared, and he said with a stern expression, "In the Guild Alliance, I didn't have to spend the slightest effort to find out a lot about this shallow nearshore sea. This coastal sea has been rumored to be a forbidden area in the Guild Alliance. Many spirit chi professionals have disappeared near this coastal sea. As the active period of the dimensional rift is approaching, the Guild Alliance did not inform the spirit guards to deal with it for now. Instead, We plan to wait until the active period of the dimensional rift ends before letting the spirit guards investigate this matter. The Guild Alliance has already sent a message to inform the spirit chi professionals not to come to this coastal sea to accept missions. Lin Yuan asked after hearing Zhu Luo's words. Have you heard any news from the Guild Alliance about the frequent appearance of decaying water world dimensional creature flesh on the shore of this shallow coastal sea? Zhu Luo replied after sorting out what he had seen in the Guild Alliance's branch. I heard from some adventurers that water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh would occasionally appear before this coastal sea. Many spirit chi professionals don't think much of it. However, in the past 2 months, more and more water world dimensional creatures have appeared on the shore. Many people are guessing if there are any powerful fays in the sea or if it's related to the upcoming active period of the dimensional rift. Lin Yuan immediately rejected the first guess after hearing Zhu Luo's words. If there were powerful fays in this water, would they come to the shore and frequently attack spirit chi professionals? However, Lin Yuan felt that it was somewhat reasonable to say that it was related to the active period of the dimensional rift. At that moment, there was no longer the smell of decaying water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh in the wind. Lin Yuan took the lead and headed to the shore. After walking to the shore, Lin Yuan saw many places with black corrosion marks on the sandy beach on the shore. These corrosion marks were caused by the decay of the high-grade water world dimensional lifeforms' flesh. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and summoned Red Thorn, which was feasting in the spirit lock spatial zone. After being summoned, Red Thorn was abnormally happy. The huge flower, which had some petals gill-like, blew and said, "Lin Yuan, fish meat, delicious." Lin Yuan was slightly stunned when he heard Red Thorn's voice. Previously, Lin Yuan knew that Red Thorn could rely on this huge flower to blow the sound of its name. However, under the premise that Red Thorn's grade and quality had not increased, its ability to simulate sound had become much stronger. Could it be related to the gill-like transformation of Red Thorn's petals? However, Lin Yuan immediately reacted to what Red Thorn had just said. First chapter. End of this chapter. Chapter 452. Lin Yuan revealed a handsome and puzzled expression. As its father, it seemed that it was necessary for him to educate Red Thorn on what real fish meat was. How could such a smelly thing like the flesh of a gold water world dimensional lifeform be called fish meat? Immediately after, Lin Yuan thought that Red Thorn had taken the initiative to devour the water world dimensional lifeform's flesh in the spirit lock spatial zone. Obviously, Red Thorn subconsciously had the impression that the flesh of the water world dimensional lifeforms was more to its taste. Lin Yuan scratched his head. Could it be that the smellier something was, the more Red Thorn liked to eat it? Lin Yuan saw that the red bow tied on Red Thorn's vine was a little dirty, so he simply untied the red bow from the vine. Then, he replaced it with the new red ribbon that Wen Yu had specially made for Red Thorn and tied it into an exquisite double-layered bow. Red Thorn was so happy that it immediately blew on the 12 red flowers. It was like the sound of a naughty child casually tapping on the keyboard. It seemed that Red Thorn's musical talent should be communicated more with Chimey. At that moment, the acid corrosion queen bee flew out of Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish. Just as it was about to land on Lin Yuan's shoulder, it was whipped to the ground by Red Thorn's vine. After being whipped to the ground, the acid corrosion queen bee hurriedly stayed far away from Lin Yuan. It obediently landed on Red Thorn's digestive cavity, which had degenerated into a sac, with a very obedient look. When Lin Yuan had summoned Red Thorn, Zhu Luo and Listen had only felt that the fae he had summoned looked very strange. However, after the acid corrosion queen bee flew out of the mouth of relinquish, they looked at its appearance. Listen and Zhu Luo were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Wasn't this bee-like fae one of Black's many fays, which was the most popular on Starweb? In that case, didn't this strange plant fae in front of them mean that it was Black's plant fae that could spread out a sea of flowers and that many scholars had guessed but had no specific conclusion? However, this strange plant fae seemed to have evolved and was completely different from its previous image on Starweb. However, the mysterious Black on Starweb had appeared in front of them, and it was still Lin Yuan. Previously, Listen and Zhu Luo had only known that Lin Yuan was the purchase with no lost stores owner. He had powerful faction support and emperor-class experts by his side. This powerful foundation had made Listen and Zhu Luo ignore Lin Yuan's strength, and he had never taken the initiative to show it. But now that he knew that Lin Yuan was Star Web's most mysterious hero, Young Black, he felt like crying. Only then did Listen and Zhu Luo realize that apart from his deep foundation, Lin Yuan was also so powerful. Not only had he ascended the celestial stairway with consecutive victories on Star Web, but he had also not suffered a single defeat on the celestial stairway. It could even be said that his combat power had faintly reached the standard of the Radiance 100 sequence. The sudden discovery of this secret made Listen and Zhu Luo feel a little magical. At that moment, Lin Yuan looked at the seaside and commanded Red Thorn. Red Thorn, cover this sea of flowers. After hearing Lin Yuan's instructions, Red Thorn scattered its spores to the coast through the huge spore cavity on the mouth of Relinquish. Under Red Thorn's command, the spores scattered along the coast did not grow into vines. Instead, they grew into several small spore cavity-shaped child ramets. These small spore cavity-shaped child ramets kept spraying spores. All of a sudden, the blinking eyes of Relinquish on Red Thorn's body closed. Through the roots connected to these child ramets, the few eyes of Relinquish were directly transmitted into the spore cavity-shaped child ramets. Then, Red Thorn and the spore cavity child ramets sprayed a large amount of spores into the sea. One by one, the nibbling vines sprang out from the shore, growing into the sea one after another. These growing vines would open the sharp teeth on the vines to absorb the seawater. Then, the spores sprayed out from the spore cavity in the seawater would be injected into the mud and sand at the bottom of the sea through the hollow vines. Relying on these methods, a large number of vines formed a sea of flowers that spread in all directions at the bottom of the sea. Lin Yuan could feel the speed at which Red Thorn spread the sea of flowers in the sea and could not help but frown slightly. Red Thorn's spores had always been small and light in order to be easy to spread in the air. However, these small and light spores became a disadvantage in the seawater. The rapid waves would instantly sweep away the small and light spores like Red Thorn. Even with the help of the vines, the spreading speed was still very slow. After all, the vines could only grab a small number of spores. Lin Yuan thought to himself, "It seems that if I want to increase Red Thorn's ability to fight under the sea in the future, I have to let Red Thorn strengthen the spore cavity again. This will allow the spores released from the spore cavity to be divided into two states. One was suitable for spreading in the air, while the other was suitable for spreading in the seawater. A portion of the spores that Red Thorn had injected into the soil by the vines in the sea had also been developed into spore cavity-shaped child ramets. However, when these child ramets also released spores, the spores would be directly swept to the surface of the sea by the surging waves at the bottom of the sea. Since Red Thorn had not devoured enough Gold Water World dimensional life forms, the ability to breathe underwater was well inherited to the child ramets. Therefore, the sea of flowers that Red Thorn spread in the sea did not have as powerful a combat ability as on land. However, it was undoubtedly enough to use the sea of flowers as Lin Yuan's eyes in the sea. Since there was a high possibility of danger in this sea region, he didn't dare to act recklessly. In that case, he would not easily go into the water before exploring this sea region clearly. As the sea of flowers continued to spread, Lin Yuan was surprised to find that there was not the slightest vitality in this shallow nearshore sea. The sea of flowers that Red Thorn had spread out wasn't small. However, Lin Yuan did not see any trace of the many shellfish phase that Listen had mentioned, the beak-billed spiny fish, and the shell-eating armored turtles that fed on shellfish phase. Since the beak-mouth spiny fish had not been discovered, it was impossible for the tail-cutting shadow sharks, which fed on the beak-mouth spiny fish, to remain in this area. He just didn't know that the group of tail-cutting shadow sharks left because there were no beak-billed spiny fish to feed on in this area. Or were they expelled or killed by something else in the sea? Lin Yuan asked Listen, who was standing beside him with a shocked expression on his face. "When you came to look at this coastal sea before you left, did you enter the sea to check the shellfish phase in the sea region?" When Listen heard Lin Yuan's words, he didn't understand why Lin Yuan would ask this. Could there be something wrong with this sea? The two poisonous water conger eels that I left Indigo Azure City to look for you to enhance for me in the royal capital were caught in this sea region. Second, more requesting recommendation votes and monthly votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 453. Listen recalled for a while and said again. At that time, there were layers of shellfish phase, and those two poisonous water conger eels always scuttled into a large patch of shellfish phase to hide their figures. When I sent people to capture them, it really took a lot of effort. Upon hearing Lissant's words, Lin Yuan was certain that this sea region had lost its vitality. It had all happened within the last 3 months. Lin Yuan had always felt that Red Thorn's eye of relinquished consumption rate was a little too fast. At first, he had only treated it as the normal consumption of spreading the sea of flowers in the sea. After all, he had never commanded Red Thorn to launch an attack in the sea before. Through Red Thorn's sea of flowers, he sensed the state of the seabed and suddenly realized something. The nibbling vines were rooted at the bottom of the sea, and only the nibbling vines that were close to the shore could absorb energy from the bottom of the sea. The further it was from the shore, the less energy it could absorb from the sea. The energy at the bottom of the sea, which was a kilometer away from the shore, seemed to have been completely extracted by something. There was not a trace of energy left, causing the entire seabed to become abnormally barren. As he pondered, he let Red Thorn continue to consume the Eye of Relinquish to release spores in this sea region. Slowly, the Eye of Relinquish on Red Thorn's body was gradually depleted. However, a portion of Red Thorn's sea of flowers had already exceeded the listening heron chamber of Commerce's coastal sea. Lin Yuan's perception ability had become extremely poor in the distant sea. However, Lin Yuan could sense that Red Thorn's nibbling vines in the other sea regions were absorbing some weak flesh energy. That weak flesh energy feedback might be that the nibbling vines had captured a fish-type fey through simple grabbing. This meant that there was vitality in the other sea regions, and it was only in the sea region where the listening heron chamber of commerce was located that there was no vitality. The Zheng family had suddenly taken action against the listening heron chamber of commerce 3 months ago. The Zheng family was one of the 3 great families in Indigo Azure City. Since the Zheng family's third lineage placed so much importance on this coastal sea, they would naturally investigate it. Therefore, it was impossible for the Zheng family's third lineage not to know that the listening heron chamber of commerce's coastal sea no longer had abundant shellfish phase. The Zheng family was so determined to obtain this nearshore shallow sea that was completely barren and had no shellfish phase. This meant that the third lineage of the Zheng family must have grasped the secret of why this coastal sea had become so barren. Before Lin Yuan could think about it carefully, he suddenly sensed a drastic change in Red Thorn's sea of flowers in the distant sea. Red Thorn's sea of flowers seemed to be entangled by a large number of things in an instant. These unknown things wrapped around and nibbled at the sea of flowers formed by the vines. He could feel a large amount of flesh energy being plundered by the things entangling the sea of flowers formed by the nibbling vines. The speed at which this thing plundered vitality shocked Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan looked at Liu Jie and nodded at him with a serious expression. Liu Jie immediately commanded the flesh-mincing blade insects lurking in the sea of sand to emerge one after another. Under Liu Jie's command, these flesh-mincing blade insects happily lined up and entered Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish. Like a group of sows lining up to jump into a ditch, neat and orderly. Red Thorn was not afraid, and its tongue of relinquish secreted a large amount of acid used to digest the alien insect's dimensional flesh. It helped Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish digest these flesh-mincing blade insects and quickly extracted energy from their flesh. Just like that, Zhu Luo and Lissant's eyelids twitched wildly. Lin Yuan used the energy obtained by Red Thorn from digesting the flesh-mincing blade insects to urge the sea of flowers to counterattack. However, the more it counterattacked, the more serious Lin Yuan's eyes became. Red Thorn's sea of flowers, which had always been successful, was obviously not a match at this time. Lin Yuan could feel that the things fighting with Red Thorn were becoming more and more numerous. However, Lin Yuan found that the things fighting with Red Thorn did not seem to know how to move or were very clumsy. As Red Thorn kept receiving attacks in the battle, the flesh energy in the sea of flowers was also absorbed by this thing at a faster rate. Moreover, this unknown creature's absorption of the sea of flowers had even affected Red Thorn's autet, which was connected to the autet, through these child ramets. Lin Yuan hurriedly let Red Thorn devour the remaining energy in the sea of flowers. Immediately after, Lin Yuan closed his eyes and fell into deep thought. Through his perception of the sea of flowers just now, there seemed to be countless thorns piercing into each of the entangling vines. Through these thorns, the flesh energy in the vines was quickly plundered in large amounts. The counterattack of the vines did not seem to have the slightest effect. This was because Lin Yuan did not feel that the vines had absorbed any flesh energy when they counterattacked. Lin Yuan thought to himself. Could it be that there was a large group of unknown creatures far away from the coast that caused this coastal sea to become so barren? But if that was the case, why did that group of unknown creatures not migrate when this shallow nearshore sea was already so barren? Why did they still stay in the depths of this shallow nearshore sea? Through the battle just now, Lin Yuan could determine that this group of unknown creatures' thorns' attack power was not considered strong. What was truly powerful was the speed at which these unknown creatures devoured energy. These thorns' attack power should not be able to beat the tail-cutting shadow shark. They could not even pierce the thorns of the beak-billed spiny fish that fed on shellfish vase. Liu Jie asked worriedly when he saw the expression on Lin Yuan's face. Lin Yuan, did you discover something bad? Lin Yuan opened his eyes, shook his head, and then nodded. The discovery obtained from Red Thorn's sea of flowers at the bottom of the sea couldn't be considered a bad discovery. This was because the things that devoured the energy of the vines should have nothing to do with the flesh of high-level water world dimensional creatures that appeared on the shore. However, the destruction of the listening heron chamber of commerce's coastal sea resources was definitely not considered good news. All of a sudden, he thought of the lifeform's energy plundering speed, the barren seabed, and the lifeform's immobility. Lin Yuan immediately thought of a possibility. If it was really as he thought. Lin Yuan could only say that he was really the reincarnation of the god of fortune. He had truly encountered a blessing this time. Liu Jie was a little confused by Lin Yuan shaking his head and then nodding his head. Then, he heard Lin Yuan say, "That's right. Brother Liu, let your hurricane owlet moths take me to the sea 3,000 meters away from the shore." The place where Red Thorn's sea of flowers had just been attacked was nearly 3,000 meters away from the shore. Whether it was a blessing or a danger, Lin Yuan felt that he needed to go into the sea to be sure. First, more. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter.